Hey guys, how you doing? Hope you having good day. In this video, I am gonna talk about what if DEKU was the successor of Evil Superman. Part 2. And subscribe for more, also like this video, that would be super duper awesome, helps me to stay motivate. And thanks to the author of this story, this video is possible. So do check it out and show some love. Name of this fanfic is The Big Blue Boy Scout by Lested 719. So do check out the author of this story and check out entire work. Also, if you have any complaints about videos, feel free to comment, I will try to improve them. Let's jump in video. I don't know if I like the thought of you being gone for a week. Namuri said to her son as he was packing his bag. You're the one that signed the permission slip, Izuku said, smiling at her pout. But you have never been gone this long, she said, walking over and hugging him from behind. How am I supposed to sleep at night not knowing if my baby is okay? Mom, you had me fight with all might. He said, folding his clothes. And I went to that summer camp for 2 weeks. SHH, let me be, she replied, kissing the top of his head, an act itself that was getting a bit difficult, he was growing like a weed. No more growing, she muttered. It is happening too fast. I am not trying to grow up fast, he said, turning to hug his mom. Maybe it's because I am an alien, I get to be taller than you. Well, tell Brainiac to figure out a way to slow it down, she said, attempting to squeeze him super tight. She smiled when he gave her a token for her attempts. He is as bad as Grandpa when it comes to me learning things, Izuku pouted. Besides, Mina likes that I am getting taller and have more muscles. Oh, she does she? Namuri said as she unleashed the most devastating attack of tickling him. She smiled as she collapsed under her assault, his laughter filling the air. He could probably run, but he wouldn't rob her of this so that she would break it out sparingly. Once she was satisfied, she relented on her assault. He is 14, has a girlfriend, and can fight with all might. He should be fine. She thought, but he was growing up so fast. She started thinking of him leaving home, going away to school. She sniffled and wrapped up in a hug till she felt better. It took a while, but Izuku didn't mind. The girlfriend. Was Mina packed? Of course not. Had she considered packing? Yes, and the fact that she thought about it made her feel better about not being packed. There was this nagging thought in her head that she couldn't shake. Mina, Izuku is here. Her father called. Oh shoot, date, we are supposed to go on a date tonight. She froze. Only if I am packed. Mina scrambled, grabbing things frantically and throwing them into her bag. It didn't matter what it was, it went in the bag. She slammed the bulging case open just as the door to her room opened. Breathing hard, trying to look composed. Hey babe, she smiled. Hello, Mina, he responded, his voice full of suspicion. Are you all packed? He said coyly, walking into the room and trying to look past her at her suitcase. Yup, all good, let's go. She said quickly, grabbing his hand to get him out. Are you going to change? He said teasingly. Mina looked down, wearing a loose shirt hanging off a shoulder, showing her bra strap. The shirt was torn at the bottom, her stomach showing, and a pair of running shorts. Yeah, I need to change, wait for me downstairs. She said quickly, trying to push him out the door. He took agonizing step after step. Then the lid of her suitcase exploded and the contents came spilling out. Mina, Izuku said, stopping, no longer allowing her to push him to the door. I was packed. She tried to protest, he arched an eyebrow at her, she tucked one foot behind the other and swayed in place, her head down. I forgot, she pouted. I want to go on our date, though, she looked up at him with pleading eyes and bit her lip. Please, Izu. Izuku knew the correct answer was to tell her no, but Mina was using all the cards at her disposal. How about I help you pack, then we can go on our date, he relented. Her mood immediately shifted as she smiled and rose and kissed him quickly on his lips. Izuku sighed, I am such a pushover, he thought. All her clothes, except any undergarments, Izuku wasn't that brave, were folded and sorted at super speed. Mina giggled at the sudden burst of wind in her room. She turned and started to pick up her undergarments, as this wasn't the first time he had helped her fold clothes so they could go out, and she knew he wouldn't touch those, and she was okay with that. Even though she liked to tease him about trying to sneak peeks at them. With Izuku's help, it didn't take long for her to get her bag all packed. All she had to do was get her toiletries bag, but that would have to wait till after her bath. She rewarded her hero with a bit more extended kiss before he stepped out, blushing, so she could get changed for their date. They were going to see a new sci-fi horror movie and get some dinner. She had been looking forward to this all week, but her commitment to procrastinate on packing had derailed her worse than she thought. She had picked out her date outfit days ago, so that was easy enough. After all, a girl has to have her priorities. She came downstairs to see her dad and Izuku chatting by the door. Izuku paused and smiled while her dad nodded, walked over, and kissed her cheek. Don't be out too late tonight, he said as he headed up the stairs. After Mina slipped on her shoes, they slipped into the evening arm in arm. Aside from when she snuggled him at home, this was her favorite time, walking arm in arm, her head resting on his shoulder. Well, him taking her flying was her absolute favorite, nothing topped that, except that night, Namuri was running late, allowing Izuku and her to practice kissing one evening on the couch. That was a perfect night. Then there was the night she had a nightmare and called him upset, then he was outside her window moments there to comfort her. She tilted her head to look at him and felt her heart thud against her chest. She smiled as they made their way to the theater. Heading home. Izuku felt a little weak in his knees after the kiss Mina had planted on him at her front door. She stepped inside with a whispered goodnight that made his heart pound. He walked home with almost a skip, Mina had this way of just ensnaring him. He walked home with a smile that wouldn't stop. He was looking forward to this trip, it was bound to be something he would never forget. Alexander Luthor. He looked over his bag again, ensuring everything was packed before he sealed it and placed it by his door. He looked at the time and sighed, he had been at this longer than anticipated, he had left orders with the staff that he would not be disturbed. He opened the door to find Daphne at her post just outside his door. Daphne was his guard, her orders could only come from him. His father had Frederick. Daphne was slender, with a light muscular build, she had long, straight dark red hair that was always pulled into a perfect bun. Some light freckles dusted her cheeks, she was always dressed in a black suit and red shirt. Daphne, it is late. Why have you not retired? You had not emerged from your room to eat, nor had you called down for your dinner, she responded, falling perfectly behind him as he walked down the hall. I can find the kitchen alone, he said as they walked. How many times do I have to order you to find your bed at a reasonable hour? Didn't I give that order yesterday? You did, sir, she responded casually, I have chosen to ignore it. I can have you fired for that. You would have to submit your complaint to the Independent Review Board, she responded with a flippant undertone. I feel I have a strong argument. And that is? He nearly growled. Someone needs to ensure that you are not neglecting your dietary needs for whatever new project you are working on like last month, she said. Last month? Life had gotten rather annoying, not only had he still not been elected class president, but he hadn't even secured the vice president spot, so he could refuse before the whole school. On top of that, he had to watch Mina hang off that annoying boy. They didn't even have the decency to not walk around the school announcing their relationship for all. The worst was when he saw them sneaking kisses, it was enough to make him sick. For over a year, he had to watch this. Then, there was the fact that he had failed to score higher than Izuku on the last test. He consistently scored higher than Izuku on all the tests, a fact that whenever he brought it up, all Izuku would do was smile and remind Lex that he had an intelligence-enhancing quirk, it was true. Also, he couldn't turn it off. So he had the lab send over a bracelet that would interrupt his quirk, it sent electromagnetic signals that caused his brain to be interrupted. According to his theory, it would put him on an even playing field with Izuku, so he could prove his dominance. Then he failed. The worst part was when the test came back and Izuku had won, not only was Mina not surprised, but they both told him it was due to him not feeling well. They had both noticed him in discomfort from the device. That fact that Mina noticed was welcome, but Izuku also irritated him. It wasn't that he didn't understand his annoyance with Izuku, but he made it hard not to like him. Present. I already explained that situation, Alexander replied. Yes, I understand, but with your previous track record, I feel ensuring you are not doing something so foolhardy again is in your best interests, she said as they entered the kitchen. Shall I prepare a steak and fries for you, sir? He narrowed his eyes, Daphne could make the best steak and fries he had ever had, better than any fine dining restaurant he had ever been in. Fine, he grumbled as he sat at the counter. He knew the proportions of every spice she used, the flame's temperature, the oil's heat, but he couldn't replicate it, and neither could the chefs. They were banned from serving it because he was disappointed if it wasn't hers. It had nothing to do with her quirk, that was hyper-regeneration, nothing to do with cooking. Are you at least packed for the trip, he asked. Of course, sir, I was packed 3 days ago, she said as she worked on his meal. He knew that since he hadn't eaten, neither had she. Prepare yourself the same meal, he said. You can eat with me. Thank you, sir, she responded, turning back to the fridge to pull out enough herself as well, a small smile on her lips. Any word from my father? He asked quietly. No sir, she said. The board is getting concerned, he has not attended any meetings, as you know. He has all the top scientists and weapons experts working on some projects on that artificial island. I know it is not my place to say. Speak, Daphne, Alexander said, leaning forward. Sir, Frederick is concerned, very concerned. Of course, he will not talk about it, but this matter cannot continue going unaddressed. I will deal with it when I get back from the trip, he said, ending the conversation. Something had happened, and his father was obsessed with it, but whenever he reached out, he only got silence. He was supposed to go to Island next year, but he had to ensure that his father was not about to lose the family company. The field trip to remember. Mina was giddy as they boarded the train, finding her seat next to Izuku. She snuggled in, pulling out her pillow, and he handed her one of his headphones, which she gleefully plugged in. A quick music selection later, and they were off. Alexander glared at Izuku and Mina and their little bubble of romance. He instead turned his attention to his laptop. He began to read through the reports that had come in from his father and the other board members' concerns. Whatever project his father had been working on, obviously something had happened. As to what that was, it seemed to have scared his father. He saw an obvious pattern in the increased spending, project allocations, and data collection. His father was paying a lot of attention to the stars while scanning the planet, almost desperately attempting to locate something. 2 costly satellites had been launched recently. They had been meant to go into deep space, but instead, they had been put into orbit around the planet. Their finely tuned sensors scanned the planet. Of course, they had been listed as communication satellites, but Alexander knew their true nature. Security had been increased, he noticed, where he was currently staying. The security detail had, at a minimum, been doubled, but so had it been increased across the board. With all his pieces, only one thing came to mind. Extraterrestrial life. His father was watching the stars and watching the planet, so he had to have found evidence of something that came from space, and he was looking for it here on Earth. Whatever it was, he was scared that more of it was coming, so he was trying to watch the skies to get some advanced warning. Now, if such an advanced species had developed the technology to travel amongst the stars, it would be assumed that they may have a way to avoid most normal detection methods. Still, their vessels may give off a unique energy signature, which his father was using to attempt to find them. Then he was working on weapons to counter the assault. The flying gummy bear smacked him in the cheek, tumbling down to the keyboard. His head immediately shot up, and he quickly calculated the trajectory. He slowly turned his head and saw Mina snap her eyes shut, attempting to pretend to be asleep, but she couldn't keep the faint smile from her lips. He saw Izuku roll his eyes and point at his girlfriend before looking away. Alexander picked up the enemy's weapon and returned fire. Smack. Dead center of Mina's forehead. He turned back to his laptop, bam. He had been hit by enemy fire again. Of course, this meant war. His next shot went wide and struck Izuku. Hers flew over him, striking Aiko. Aiko assumed the wrong party and returned fire with a gummy worm, striking Kano, who fired, missing Aiko and hitting Aisha. Hence, the great gummy war of train car C began. He was pleased when Daphne handed him a large bag of the weapon of choice. However, he wondered how she had them and why the rest of the class was armed with the gummy projectiles. The train pulled into Sendle, smiles and laughter still echoing through the car. Remember to stop and make sure we pick up all poor bears, worms, fish, and other gummy weapons before you get off the train. Izuku called out. Hi. Rang out as the students gathered all they could. Izuku waited till the last person was off the train before he did a quick sweep, removing any remaining evidence. It was a great way to start the trip. A4 Sapporo. Mina was cuddling her stuffed penguin from the Maruyama Zoo. As she held Izuku's hand, she couldn't stop smiling, and the entire trip had been so much fun. Yes, there was schoolwork they had to do, but there were these times when she could explore with Izuku and their classmates. Even Lex cracked a few smiles while they were on the trip. Of course, Daphne was right there, but now, if they would just let Mina set them up, everything would be perfect. They boarded the buses and were en route to their next stop, Sapporo City Museum, when their fun school trip turned into a nightmare. She was sitting next to Daphne, trying to figure out if the girl had feelings for Lex, while Izuku and Lex debated the animals and their habitats at the zoo. Everybody get down. Izuku suddenly yelled. Mina immediately ducked. Lex was grabbed and thrown down by Daphne as something next to the bus exploded and a beam of energy sheared off the top of the bus. Luckily, Izuku was able to get everyone down as chaos erupted all around them. The bus skidded to a stop, students were screaming as teachers, and some of the level-headed students started trying to get everyone evacuated. Screams and smoke filled the air from the busy streets of Sapporo as panic reigned. Another explosion rocked the area. Mina started grabbing people and hustling them off as Izuku did the same from the front exit. Lex and Daphne got to their feet, looking at the chaos unfurling around them. Daphne grabbed her back, pulled out a black metal cylinder, and typed a quick message into her phone. Sir, we have to go. She grabbed him and rushed him off the bus. Lex stopped when he saw Izuku's head whip towards the street. Lex saw a child lying on the ground with a head wound. There was a smoking hole near her, and a car was speeding right towards the poor thing. He watched as Izuku disappeared from his spot, and a second later, he had the child in his arms, all before Lex could shout a warning or anything. He didn't see the look of panic on Daphne's face as she grabbed him and dived off the bus. Something came crashing into it, destroying it and leaving a smoking crater. Frantic screams filled the air as the teachers started directing students toward the subway entrance down the street. Lex pushed himself up as Daphne was already on her feet, looking for any threats. Then, the threat floated out of the hole where their bus once was. The man was impressive, he was about the same build as All Might, his black suit was torn and damaged, but they witnessed it repairing itself to an immaculate state, as did cuts and bruises on his face. He wore a blood-red shirt with a black tire, a black cape billowed off his shoulders fastened by a gold and diamond-encrusted chain. He ran his hair through his long white hair, and his red eyes glistened excitedly. He used a malice, radiating it that filled the surrounding populace with fear. His red eyes began to glow menacingly as his mocking laughter filled the air. He looked around, his gaze stopped on Lex. "Oh, what it is that I spy with my little eye, an intelligence quirk, and my hyper-regeneration, that may come in handy one day. Now come to me, kiddies." He smiled, like a sadistic predator having just looked upon fresh meat, in an instant he was before them. Daphne pushed Lex aside as the black cylinder in her hand became a baton. She swung at their attacker and did her best not to let her dismay show when he caught the attack, and the baton started to melt. "I love it when they struggle for me, worms, writhe before me." Lex saw the hand coming for him and Daphne. Suddenly, the man yelled and stumbled back as acid landed on his face. Mina ran and grabbed both of them, desperately trying to yank them away. The villain recovered, stomping the ground. Everything began to shake. Mina pushed Daphne and Lex to the side as the villain's massive boot landed squarely in her back, sending her sprawling to the ground. The villain stomped towards her, a scowl on his face. "That wasn't very nice, worm." Mina scrambled back, she made a broad swipe, throwing another acid attack at the villain. It struck the villain's knees, and he stumbled forward. Mina saw Lex and Daphne getting to her feet. She jumped over and attempted to grab and tumble to her feet in front of the duo. "Run," Mina said, her heart thumping and her voice cracking. "I will hold him off." All Might stumbled out of the damaged construction site, his arm shredded beyond recognition, blood coming from places it shouldn't be. He saw Mina standing there, staring down the terror that was All for One. All for One laughed, "Poor little girl, when you are dead, know that at least you made me stumble." He was in front of Mina before she could react. Lex reached out for her as Daphne tackled him away, a scream on his lips. Mina's eyes widened in fear, but she held her ground. "Get away from her, you bitch." Izuku roared as he yanked All for One violently back by his cape, swinging him overhead and slamming him into the ground away from Mina. Before Izuku could move, the asphalt and rebar exploded from the ground like a spear, sending him flying. The villain rose from the ground. His face was a mask of anger and rage. "How dare you?" He was about to say something else when an Izuku came barreling in with a punch that sent the villain crashing down the street through multiple cars. He bounced and crashed into a semi-truck. Izuku followed, he reared back and threw the hardest right hook he could. The impact sounded like an explosion, the villain didn't move. Lex saw the effect, he saw a ripple that started at the point of impact and then raced to the villain's fist. "My turn, worm." Izuku couldn't move fast enough as the villain punched him, sending him flying again. The villain leaped after Izuku's reading to deliver a crushing blow, only to be speared out of the air and into a building by All Might. The building began to shake as rubble fell everywhere. Mina warned a mother and child as a large piece of debris fell towards them. The woman put both hands above her head as a white shield formed. She fell to her knees as the stone crashed down on her, but the shield held. A water main ruptured, adding more chaos to the scene. They could hear the screams for help. Mina raced towards the devastation, and Lex gritted his teeth and followed with Daphne on his heels. They jumped to the left, and as more debris fell, they scrambled to where the trapped woman was. Mina went to use her acid to try to dissolve the rubble to free them. Lex noticed the woman and child were getting wet from the water and yelled at her to stop. "Lex, we have to save them." Mina shouted, she could see the woman straining under the pressure, cracks forming in the shield. "Mina, they are getting wet, the liquid is passing through her shielding." He yelled. Mina froze. Lex looked around the area. "Daphne, grab that metal bar, Mina. I am going to need your help to shift this off of them." The girls nodded as they sprang into action. All Might came tumbling out of the building, skidding to a stop as the All for One stomped out after him. "Is that all you have? I expected better, even Nana put up more resistance than this." All for One, his eye widened as a car flew into him, knocking him back. Izuku landed next to All Might. All Might said, "Young Kayama, you need to retreat." "No offense, but so do you," Izuku responded. He did all he could not to stare at the shredded hero's arm. "Young Kayama, we need to vary our attack," All Might said. "He has multiple quirks for attack and defense, but he has to shift between them. I need you to attack with your heat vision. I am going to put an end to this." All for One came flying out of the building, only for Izuku to intercept him, sending him crashing back down. "Enough games. Your quirk is mine." He grabbed Izuku by the head. "Huh? Sorry asshole, Izuku growled. All for One screamed as Izuku's eyes glowed red, his heat vision tore free. All for One screamed as his eyes melted. He kicked Izuku away, activating his healing quirks. As he stumbled to his feet, he heard as the sound of air rushing towards him. You were done. All Might roared as his fist collided with the villain's head, blood and tissue splattered everywhere. He fell to the ground. He was barely aware as he heard voices around him. He is going to bleed out, said voice 1. We need to cauterize the wound somehow, said voice 2. I can do that, one said. Do you know which ones? Of course, I am at least 100 times smarter than a dumb oaf like you. How are you just stupid strong, 2 replied. Look, it doesn't matter right now. Just tell me what I need to do, one said. Oh my god, is he alive, a third voice said. Not for long, a fourth added. Mina, do you have your phone? Call my grandmother. One said, that must be Izuku, All Might thought. How is your grandmother going to help? 2 said sarcastically. Shut up, Lex, Izuku snapped. Izuku? What is happening, are you alright? The familiar voice of Chio filled the air. Grandma Almighty is hurt bad. I was able to cauterize some of the wounds, but he is missing a lung, intestines, part of his stomach, his left arm is torn and shredded, his heart rate is all over the place, and he is unconscious, Izuku called out. Where are you? Chio asked. Sapporo, Mina said quickly. Izuku, how fast can you get him to Tokyo? Chio. Top speed a couple of minutes, if that, Izuku replied. Lex and Daphne looked at each other, then Izuku, many questions hung in the air. Good, get him to Tokyo General, land on the Hero Wing, they will take it from there. I am on my way, and Izuku, hurry. The line went dead. How are you going to get him to Tokyo? Number 4, Aka Daphne said. Mina cover for me, was his only reply. They watched Izuku lift All Might like he was nothing, rise off the ground, and in a gust of wind, he was gone. A moment later, they heard a sonic boom. Lex looked at Mina, who was staring at where Izuku had gone. He can fly. Mina nodded, come on, we need to see if anyone else needs help and if our class is okay. Lex and Daphne followed her as they ran out of the building into the aftermath of the battle. A dozen questions were racing through Lex's mind. Not only had Izuku fought with a villain that had dealt such extensive damage to All Might, but he seemed relatively unharmed from the attacks he suffered. He was super strong, but he could also fly. His rival had not one but 2 quirks. He wanted to try and get answers, but he knew he would have to wait. People needed help, and that took precedence. Izuku. He landed at the Tokyo General Hero Wing precisely 1 minute and 22 seconds after he left Sapporo. The emergency response team hadn't even made it there yet, though they did come bursting out not long after. He placed All Might on the gurney as the medical team went to work. Izuku just fell back on his butt after they had left. The adrenaline dump, the shock, he was covered in All Might blood, and his hand was covered. He started to shake. He barely registered the door to the roof opening, and his mother comes running out. Izuku, Izuku, the second time caught his attention. He looked up at her, and she could see him shaking. Are you hurt? He numbly shook his head. Whose blood is that? He thinks, he mumbled. All Might. Namuri took a deep breath, helped him to his feet, and led him inside. She quickly saw a familiar green-haired doctor approaching her. Midnight, is he injured? She said as she ran towards the heroine. No, Dr. Midoriya, he is in a bit of shock. He transported All Might from Sapporo. This is my son, she replied. It is amazing he got him here so fast. The doctor said. Come with me. I will get you into a room so he can get cleaned up, try to get him to drink something, and stay with him. Thank you, Dr. Midoriya, Midnight said. Okay, I understand then, you can call me Inko if you like, she smiled as she led Midnight and Izuku to the room. Once alone, Namuri got Izuku into the shower room, telling him to strip. She turned on the water and got him in, letting the water wash away the blood. A nurse came in with some different juices and crackers for them before heading out. Namuri called Shota and told him to grab clothes for Izuku from her home and bring them to Tokyo General, room 919. It took her a moment to calm him down. Mom? She heard Izuku call out. I am right here, baby, she said, moving to stand outside the shower. You must wash up, your uncle is bringing you some clean clothes. Mom, is he going to make it? She heard his voice tremble. I don't know, baby. He is a fighter, though, and getting him here so quickly is going to give him the best chance of doing that. She stuck her hand in the curtain. She felt some relief when she took it, but she could feel him still trembling. I need to get back to Sapporo and Mina, he started to say. No, first you need to get clean and drink some juice, maybe eat a few crackers. You are in shock right now. I am not about to let you go running off, she replied. He squeezed her hand and muttered an okay. Once the water turned off, she stepped out, passing him a hospital gown. When he stuck his hand out, he came out and sat on the bed. She sat next to him, handing him some orange juice. He rested his head on her shoulder, taking a deep breath as he tried to calm his nerves. He was primarily calm when Izawa arrived and handed him some fresh clothes. He stepped into the bathroom to change, and when he came out, he looked at his mother with pleading eyes. "I feel better, not 100%, but better," he said. "I don't want you to go, but I know I can't stop you," she hugged him. "You will call me every hour on the hour until I say otherwise, do you understand?" He nodded and hugged her just tight enough. He went and opened the window, but it suddenly slammed shut. They turned and saw Dr. Midoriya standing in the doorway. "I don't think so, kiddo," she put up her hand to stop his protest. "I need to at least ensure you are alight before flying off back to Sapporo." Izuku reluctantly sat back down as she came over, asked him questions, and read his vitals. "What, have you been in such a hurry to run out of here?" "My classmates and girlfriend are still in Sapporo, I need to get back to them. I am sure my teachers are also worried that I am not there. They don't know I can fly," he said. "I should have suspected that a girl was involved." The doctor finished her exam. "Eat some more citrus, if you feel anything unusual, call your mother immediately and follow up with your doctor when you get home." Izuku nodded, kissed his mom, fist bumped his uncle, and was gone in a gust of wind. "They are always running off so fast, it is hard to keep up with them," Inko said, looking at Midnight. "My daughter also wants to be a hero, I just wish she would slow down." "How old is she?" Midnight asked, staring out the window. 14 going on 28, Inko laughed. "Can I ask a personal question?" Midnight raised an eyebrow and said, "Go ahead. Does your son and his girlfriend fight? Like, argue a lot?" "No, not at all, they are childhood friends, she has him wrapped around her finger," Midnight said with a smile. Inko sighed. "I wish my daughter and her friend were like that, they fight like cats and dogs all the damn time. His mother and I are friends, so we hoped our kids would, you know." Midnight smiled. "But I don't know if they like each other, but they go at it every other day." "They are still young, maybe they haven't figured out how they feel yet," Midnight said sympathetically. "What is her name?" "Mikane Midoriya, she is a pyrokinetic," Inko said. "Maybe after everything settles down, we can introduce them. Izuku wants to be a hero, and so does his girlfriend. Maybe it will be good for her to at least talk to them," Midnight offered. "I would appreciate that," Inko bowed and handed her card. "Isn't he a little old for you to be setting him up on playdates?" Shota said with a smirk. "Oh, hush you," Midnight said with a laugh. Sapporo. It was a few hours since Izuku had left. Mina was worried until she received a text from Nomuri telling her what had happened. Mina covered for his absence with the teachers by telling them emergency services were treating Izuku for shock, but he was okay and should be released soon. Thankfully, Lex helped to deflect their other questions. They could provide some assistance before they were told by emergency services to report to their class. Thankfully, no one had been seriously injured and they were able to make their way back to the hotel. The trip would be cut short as the teachers were making arrangements for them to go back home. There were a lot of anxious parents waiting back home, as well as a lot of phone calls. Mina talked to her parents, letting them know she was uninjured and safe. Her father was trying to convince her to have Izuku fly her home right now, but in the end, he calmed down. When Izuku came walking into the lobby, she couldn't get to him right away as the teachers got a hold of him first. Once that was over, she ran and hugged him. "You alright?" she said, burying her face in his chest. "Yeah, all the blood," and he sighed as he held her. "It was just a lot to deal with." "Is All Might going to be alright?" "I don't know, they rushed him off, it is awful, they just left me on the roof," he said. "Let's get you some food." She grabbed his hand and pulled him into the dining area where the rest of their class was. As soon as he came in, some of the kids came over to check on him and thank him for the heads up about the attack. He was sitting down eating when Lex took the seat across from him, so super strength, flight, invulnerability, and super senses. How does one person have so many different quirks? Mina froze. Izuku chewed his steak and smiled. "Easy, Lex, I am an alien from outer space." Mina did her best not to faint. "You don't have to be an asshole about it," Lex snapped. Izuku smirked confidently. "This is a delicious steak," he said, plopping another piece in his mouth. "Asshole." Lex growled as he got up and walked away. Island. "You won't get away with this shield. I don't care who your dad is." A large muscular boy with black hair and eyes yelled as he was stuck to his cronies by a sticky, viscous substance. "Yay, you quirkless freak." Another boy yelled. "Okay, I will worry about that in an hour, or was it 2, when you can get yourselves unstuck," Melissa Shield said with a grin, her aqua eyes shining with delight. She flipped her long blonde hair and turned her back on the struggling, cursing trio. "Thanks for the save, Melissa," Lily said, getting to her feet. Kristen was by the very definition tiny. She was barely over 3 feet tall, but she was beautiful. She had translucent fairy wings on her back, her skin seemed to shimmer, rainbow-colored hair that matched her eyes, accompanied by her pointed ears, gave her a very fairy-like appearance. It's okay, Lily, but you have to be more careful, Melissa said. Hey bitch, what did you do with to my boyfriend? Melissa and Kristen winced. You wouldn't have any more of that stuff, would you? Lily whispered. No, Melissa said, turning around. Hey Hinata, how are you doing? Hinata Kanjo stood her literal flaming red hair flowing menacingly. She was flanked by her sister Meiho, whose hair was the shape of water and moved in a similar pattern. Meiho. Your boyfriend was hitting on Lily and didn't want to take no for an answer, Melissa said, stepping back, her hand in front of her. Why would he hit on that short bitch when he has me? Hinata said. We are going to kick both your asses, you can't hide behind daddy now. That may be true, but run, Melissa said, turning and dashing off. Lily took off into the air in the opposite direction. Hide out. Lily yelled. Hide out. Melissa said, running off down the street. Get back here. Meiho yelled as the two sisters took off in hot pursuit of Melissa. Melissa ran zigzagging between people in a mad dash to try and escape the two sisters. Melissa was about to break to the right when she saw more of Kanjo's sisters click. Instead, she bolted left and right towards the subway. She ran down the stairs as fast as she could, leaping the last 5 steps in a desperate attempt to get away. She looked at the information board, saw when the next train was coming, and ran. As the sisters were in hot pursuit, she ran, scanning her watch at the turnstile. The gate swung open, and her legs were pumping as she raced towards the platform. She could feel her lungs burning slightly, the train was already there, and she could see the countdown to the doors closing. Pushing with all she had, she jumped into the car as the door closed just behind her, before the two sisters could reach her. She could hear them shouting something about seeing her tomorrow, but that was Melissa's problem tomorrow. Once she caught her breath, she made her way to an empty car. She looked at the information. This was the beach line, no wonder it was so empty. She would be a little late getting home, so she took her seat, leaning back. She sighed as she looked up to the ceiling. If only I had a quirk, then maybe I could be a hero like Uncle Might. Melissa's shield. Melissa sat upright, looking around, the voice sounded beside her. It had a hollow tone to it, a raspiness. The train car was empty. Melissa's shield. It called out again, the train car lights flickered. Melissa got to her feet, looking around, he reached into her bag and pulled out a small aerosol device. Who is there? She said, her voice quivering. Melissa's shield, the lights in the carriage went out and strange lights started flooding in from outside. Melissa suppressed the scream. Instead, she balled up her fists. I don't know who you are, but if you want some, come, get some. The train stopped and doors opened. Melissa looked out the door, there was no platform, no rays of sunshine, instead, she saw a stone-paved path. 2 large braziers sitting upon a pedestal suddenly erupted in blue fire, then further down the path. If you think I am getting off this train to go into the creepy cave, you have another thing coming, she said to herself. I have seen enough horror movies to know this doesn't end well. She pulled out her phone, the screen was black and wouldn't power up when she felt pulled by an unseen force out of the car, she yelled. She turned to see the doors to the train close. Melissa's shield. Melissa tried to force the doors open. She looked and saw no other train cars, just the one that brought her. There was no opening on either side, just cave walls. She turned and looked down the path. Of course, it banked to the right, not allowing her a clear view of what she was about to walk into. Armed as best she could, she started walking. As she rounded the corner, she could see statues lining the walls. They appeared to be human, but she recognized nothing. They all were dressed strangely, and she noticed each one had some symbol of a lightning bolt. She kept walking until she saw the statues looked broken, damaged, or smashed. Before her, she saw moonlight pouring down, illuminating a throne. Melissa stopped seeing a figure sitting on the throne, she couldn't make out any features except a long white beard that dangled out. His robes were a deep crimson red, the edges were embroidered in a gold mosaic pattern. In the person's hand was a staff looking to be carved of strange blackened wood. Adorned along the top was a pulsing ruby, it seemed to mimic a heartbeat. Who are you? Why have you brought me here? Melissa called out, hesitantly, she moved forward. As the hole above the throne became more visible, Melissa saw the largest full moon she could recall. It was massive, almost like she could reach and touch it. Melissa's shield, the voice again, but it radiated from the person on the throne this time. Long have I sought one such as you. I have been watching you. Okay, that is kind of creepy, she said, moving closer. You have been chosen. Chosen for what? Melissa said, looking for another exit. My time is ending, and the world needs a champion, a hero, to stand against the tides of darkness on the horizon. You are pure of heart, brave, and true. Though your society sees you as less than, you have applied your mind to rise higher, to defy the station they would assign you. No one gets to define my station, Melissa said. But this sounds like a fairy tale, why should I believe anything you say? You are right to doubt Melissa's shield, I am the wizard Shazam, I have sat upon this throne since the time before what you call quirks. Chosen like you were once upon a time, my words may ring hollow for you, but great dangers are lurking in the darkness, just beyond mortal eyes. Things are moving, and you will be needed to ensure the world does not fall. The wizard struggled to his feet, he rapped the staff upon the ground, it echoed as if steel struck steel. Melissa suddenly stumbled back as she saw a warlord from amongst the stars descending to wreak havoc and death upon the world. A great red demon rising from the depths consuming his earthbound daughter and enslaving the world. A mad god seeking the end of life, ruling over a planet of pain and death. A man sitting in the shadows, lurking and plotting to consume the world, standing over her uncle as his life ebbs upon the ground. Melissa fell to her knees, what was that? That is what is coming for your world, just a taste of what is lurking in the darkness. My uncle. Melissa said, scrambling to her feet, I have to help him. Would you take up my mantle? Would you fight to save and protect those you love and the entire world? Yes. She cried out as she reached the base of the throne. Then kneel Melissa shield, receive my power, become the world's champion. Melissa kneeled, she felt the staff touch her forehead and her body was flooded with power. Energy tore through her, around her, and wrapped itself around every fiber of her being. A single word exploded in her mind. Call upon the word of power, Melissa shield, call upon the word of power, call upon the word, and be reborn. Shazam! Melissa screamed. Lightning descended, striking all around Melissa in a staggering display, it was blinding when the smoke cleared and Melissa rose to her feet. She was garbed in white and gold. She wore a white top with a thick gold lightning bolt emblazoned on the front, it hugged a more developed figure. The white cape hung off her shoulder with the same metallic gold trim, it fell just below her knees. She looked down at the white skirt and gold boots, she saw muscle tone that wasn't there before, she flexed, marveling at the toned, muscled arms. Her hair was longer and fuller, she could feel the power coursing through her. She bent down and pushed off, she rocketed up like a missile, passing through the opening. As she burst out, she found herself up above Island. Go forth, Melissa, go forth, a protector, a champion, an astonishing person, a wonderful person, a marvel. The Cane Midoriya. The Cane waited for the bell to ring, thankful that the week had concluded. She pulled her long curly hair into a ponytail, her luminous green eyes fixed on the final countdown to freedom. She couldn't wait to get home, get out of her uniform, and relax. Her mind drifted to what her mother had told her earlier. Earlier? So I arranged for you to hang out with someone this Saturday, Inko told her. The Cane looked up from her notebook, confused, what do you mean you arranged for me to hang out with someone? Did you set me up on a play date? Inko laughed at her daughter's terminology but thought about it. You know what I think I did. Mom. She protested, turning red and thanking the heavens that no one else was in the house to hear this. Why would you do that? I thought he was nice, Inko said innocently. Mom. Akane protested quickly. Wait, he. Her eyes narrowed. You better not be trying to set me up on a date. I know he isn't Kitsuki, Inko smirked as Akane made gagging noises. You, just you mom, Akane said. And not after I found out he had a girlfriend, though Inko might have muttered that last part. What was that? Akane inquired. Nothing, dear, Inko said. No, it is not a date, he is the son of a pro hero I met at the hospital. He wants to be a hero and go to UA, I figured it would be nice of you to talk to someone else who wants to run around and make their poor mothers worry all night. Akane sighed. Son of a pro huh? Akane said quietly and Inko knew she had her daughter hooked. If anything, she knew her daughter couldn't resist the chance to talk about pro heroes and their quirks with someone. Look, you don't have to stay long if you don't want to, or I can even call and cancel, Inko said. Who is the pro? Akane said. Midnight. Inko said with a devilish grin. Back to reality. The bell rang as she gathered her stuff. Yo Aka, you want to come karaoke with us? Her friend asked. Nini is going to invite Kitsuki and the guys. Akane turned to her tawny-haired friend. Sure, Kami. Alright, Aka is coming, said their other friend Dahlia. Dahlia was a bit taller than Akane at 5'3". Her skin was beautiful alabaster, with these black lines almost tattooed on, pitch black hair with white tips, and her eyes were all white, except the black lines that ran through them. She was genuinely exotic looking and gorgeous. So cool, Kami explained, grabbing Akane by the arm. Do you want to come hang out tomorrow? Akane looked at her two friends, hope beaming in their eyes. Sorry, I have to do something for my mom. She said, seeing the light die, but if it wraps early, I will give you a call. The three girls exited the crowded halls, seeing Nini coming, followed by Kitsuki, Tsubasa, and Hifu. Kitsuki wore his usual scowl, his ash blonde hair in its traditional spiky style, and his red eyes flickered with annoyance as he stalked toward Akane and her group. Tsubasa smiled like always, his wings folded on his back as he maneuvered past the other students. His brown hair was a traditional windblown mess, as always, but he was too busy talking with Nini, who he had an obvious crush on. Nini, for her part, knew about the crush and kept dropping hints for him to ask her out, but he had yet to pick up on her signals. Her long black hair was in a simple braid down her back and her black eyes would dart this way and back as she talked with Tsubasa. Lastly was Hifu, his hat was pulled down low over his eyes like always, it was a wonder the boy could see well enough not to bump into things as he walked. His messy black hair was contained underneath, as always. This is a waste of time, we should hit the arcade for a bit, then go train, Bakugo nearly growled, the vein in his forehead ticked in annoyance when everyone groaned. Dude, all we do is go the arcade and then train, Kami replied. That shit is tiring as hell. Fine, don't cry to me when you damn extras don't make it into UA. He clicked his tongue. Come on, Akane. I don't feel like training today, Akane said, shrugging her shoulders. It has been a long week, I will go karaoke with my friends. Besides, going to the arcade all the damn time is boring. The girls nodded. Fine, but we are training double tomorrow, he huffed. Nope, got plans, Akane said, the girls said they did. Bitsuki turned and looked at the guys, I have to help my grandfather move some stuff, Tsubasa said quickly. Ifu, little sister's recitals, he shrugged. No way I can get out of that. Whatever you damn extras. He yelled, stomping off. Play date. Have fun on your play date, Mina yelled, smirking as Izuku rolled his eyes. It is not a play date, he yelled back, her laughter greeted him. I mean, I guess it could be fun, he said casually. I hear she wants to be a hero, works hard all the time, and is a good student, Mina stopped laughing. Mom did say she was pretty cute, his steps slowed. But it's nothing. We are just going to walk around an outdoor mall, maybe ride the carousel. I think there is that grand opening of what is that store he snapped his fingers a few times. Edge of the Galaxy, he smiled, that's the ticket. Mina raced from her spot and dived, wrapping her arms around his neck, Izuku she whined. I want to be a hero, I work hard. Sometimes. And my grades have gone up this year. Mina tried fruitlessly to yank him back. And I am fucking adorable. She said with a pout. She let out an eep as he whirled around, lifted her, and kissed her suddenly. Is she really cute, Mina said, still pouting. Mina, other girls may be cute, but you are magnificent, he replied when they broke apart. I have no idea. All I know is that she had green hair and green eyes. No one can hold a candle to you. Not even Ragdoll, Mandalay, or Pixie Bob, Mina teased, remembering how her boyfriend had been shy when he met the group at her mother's agency last week. Don't forget Tiger, he added. I would have to say maybe you tie with Tiger, he teased. I can live with that, she smiled. They kissed, leaving each other weak in the knees. I love you, she whispered when they pulled apart. I love you more, he said, floating in the air. Akane looked at the dress her mother had laid out for her and immediately squashed that idea. Instead, she opted for a pair of black jeans, boots, and her brand new All Might shirt. She grabbed her keys and headed out to catch her train, wanting to arrive on time. The train wasn't overcrowded like it was in the mornings for school since it was a Saturday. She got off at her destination and crossed to the Tagada shopping plaza. She found the clock stand at the entrance and saw a good-looking boy standing there. He had black hair, green eyes like her, blue jeans, and a white fitted shirt that read Sound of Fury. He is cute, she thought as she approached. She noticed he was looking around and as soon as he saw her, he watched her approach. Midoriya? He asked when she came within earshot. Hayama? She said back, when he nodded and smiled, she relaxed slightly. He bowed slightly, it is nice to meet you, he greeted her, she returned the greeting, and they both felt awkward. So I hear you want to go to the UA. That's right, Akane said, relaxing a little more. I am a pyrokinetic. That is pretty awesome. Can you make the fire as well or control it? He said, his eyes gleaming slightly. May can control it, she smiled, I can even solidify it some. That is amazing. It would be best if you practiced a lot to have so much control, he responded as they started to walk into the shopping district. I am surprised to see you wearing All Might. I would have guessed you would favor Endeavor. Akane smiled, I like Endeavor, he is very talented with his control and stuff, but his attitude is just kind of crappy. I guess. That tracks, he laughed. Alright, tell me about your quirk, she said excitedly, I heard you are Midnight Sun. So, have you had a gas attack like her or something? No, Izuku said, noticing her excitement. It is all physical, he flexed his arm. I take after my dad. So, a strength quirk. Kind of, we call it Vitruvian. He responded. Vitruvian? She said, slightly confused, before she snapped her fingers. Like Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man. Pretty interesting, she smirked at him. Izuku blushed slightly, my quirk affects my whole body, strength, speed, skin, and senses. Well, that makes sense then. You're not just a normal man, you're a Superman, she laughed. That is a powerful quirk. You are probably a shoo-in for UA. I wouldn't dare say that, but I think I have a good chance, he responded. Good, you're humble about it, at least, she said. So Kayama, do you have a first name? Izuku. You can call me Akane, she looked around the district. What do you do for training? Izuku did his best to answer her questions, leaving out the training at UA. He was happy to hear how hard she worked herself along with some kids from her school. They all wanted to be heroes, of course. She didn't know if they would make it, but they wanted to try. She told him about her friend Katsuki Bakugo and his quirk, Explosion. That is a strong quirk. It sounds like he's super serious, Izuku chuckled as they bought something to drink. All the damn time, Akane sighed. All he talks about is how he will be better than All Might and beat down all the villains. He is super competitive, it gets annoying. Is it bad that I find one of my best friends annoying sometimes? I don't think so, Izuku said. He sounds very driven, but dealing with someone who is hyper-competitive and fixated can get tiring sometimes. You have to be able to relax and have some fun now and again. Also, heroics is about more than just beating up villains. I tell him that all the time, and he gets all pissed off. If I score better than him on a test or place higher on the exams, she brought her hands together and made an explosion sound as she separated them. It is cool that it makes me work harder, he pushes me, you know, Izuku nodded. But sometimes, she motioned like she was choking someone. I get it. There is this guy in my class. We call him Lex, and he gets all bent out of shape about the weirdest things, Izuku pointed towards a figuring store. Akane nodded. When I beat him for class president, you would have thought I stole his dog or something. Some people just can't stand to lose, she said as they entered. No one likes to lose, and I sure as hell don't, but when I do, I just try to figure out how it happened and work harder. That is the right mindset, Izuku smiled as he saw a figure of his mother. Do you ever talk to him about his viewpoint on heroics? Sometimes, but that normally leads to a fight, Akane was looking over an All Might figure. What is it like having a pro hero for a mom? She pointed at the Midnight figure. Especially the rated R heroine. Most people don't know that my mom is a pro, so that helps, he said as they moved deeper into the store. It sucks reading all the stuff they put out online and on message boards, he sighed. Seeing thousands of people say how they have fantasies about her is not fun. I didn't think about that, Akane said. Is she like that at home? Nope, he said, smiling as he found a small eraser head figure. She is just a mom at home, which is normal. She loves dancing, singing, playing, and being super protective. Typical mom stuff. Akane asked, she smiled when he nodded in agreement. That is cool to hear, from what you read online, you think she is all crazy parties. All those rumors of her dating every hero out there must suck. He nodded, I don't think she has gone on a date that I can recall, she may and may not just have said anything. What about your dad, though? Akane said, concerned. He died before I was born, Izuku said, he was an artist and was on a flight to America when his plane went down. Oh, Akane said, feeling like she had shoved her foot down her throat. Sorry I didn't. It's okay, he responded. No one knows like it isn't common knowledge that she has a son. So if you could. Of course, I promise. You are right. I don't think I have read anywhere about her having a kid, Akane looked at the figure in his hands. Is that Eraserhead? Yeah, I am surprised you know him, he said, shocked. He is an underground hero. There isn't a lot out there about him, but I found that he is pretty cool, she said. He is kind of like my uncle, he said, then pointed to a present mic poster. Him too, they went to school with my mom. That is so cool. I love his show, Akane beamed. Do you think you can get me an autograph? I promise, he answered, she beamed at him. So, do you get to meet many heroes, she pushed. Not as many as you think, he said as he moved from the hero section to movie creatures. Her sidekicks, of course, I did just meet the wild pussycats. He pulled out his phone and showed her a photo. Oh, and Recovery Girl. Whoa, how did you meet Recovery Girl? Akane said, stunned. She is close with my mom and has been my doctor my whole life, he said sheepishly. Wait, does that mean you have been to UA? She had stopped walking. A few times, he lied. She has a separate place that we normally go to. That is so damn cool, she gushed. You like xenomorphs? Izuku smiled, I don't mind them, but my girlfriend has this weird obsession with them. Oh, you have a girlfriend? Akane teased, also slightly disappointed. Does she want to be a hero? Izuku nodded, is she the daughter of another pro? No, her parents aren't pro heroes, they don't even work in the field, he said, showing Akane a picture of him and Mina from Alien World. We met in school, childhood friends kind of thing. That's awesome, Akane paused. Do you and her fight like I do with Katsuki? No, nothing like that, Izuku had a bit of a goofy look on his face for a moment. I have to make sure she stays focused on schoolwork because she likes to have fun, but she drags me into it, it is a good counterbalance. That is good then, Akane replied as they made their way to the front so he could make his purchases. Maybe if we get together again, you can meet her? Izuku asked. I think I would like that, Akane said, standing off as he paid. I was annoyed my mom set up this play date, but I am glad she did. You're a cool dude. Izuku laughed, that is what my girlfriend called it also, but I am glad our mothers set this up. He held up his phone, want to exchange contact info. Akane nodded, pulling out her phone. They tapped them together, and the telltale ding told them it worked. Are you hungry? There is an all-American dinner around the corner. Hell yeah, I love that place, Akane said as they walked off. Caught in the act. Ami, Nini and Dahlia had just exited their favorite clothing store, Emporium, and talked about getting food when Nini stopped dead. Isn't that Akane? She said, pointing across the way toward All American. Kami and Dahlia turned, and sure enough, they saw her sitting in a booth by the window, and she wasn't alone. Some guy was sitting across from her, laughing and having a grand time. Holy shit, is she on a date? Dahlia said. It looks like it, Kami said, slightly stunned. She said she had to do something for her mom, but would call me if it wrapped up early. Kami pulled out her phone and dialed Akane. They saw her pick up her phone and step away from the table. Hey, Kami, her voice rang out. What's up? Oh, nothing much, Kami said casually. I called to see if you were done with that thing for your mom, so you could come hang out. Sorry, but no, Akane replied. It seems like it is going to take a while. Oh, that sucks, well, talk to you later, Kami said, ending the call. They watched as Akane returned to the table and conversed with the boy. Dude, she is totally on a date. Dahlia said. He is pretty cute, at least. I bet Katsuki would be so mad, Nini giggled. If he found out, she blew off training for a date. What are we going to do? Dahlia asked. Ami took some pictures before putting her phone away. If she is on a date, let's not mess it up for her. We can interrogate her about it later, Kami smiled. Come on, I want to eat. Explosion house. What are you doing, her brat? Mitsuki asked as she saw her son sitting on the couch watching television. Watching television you hag. Bakugo yelled back, the vein in his forehead ticking. I can see that. Mitsuki's voice raised, matching his. Then why are you asking stupid questions? Bakugo got to his feet. What did you? Mitsuki stomped into the living room. Mitsuki. Bakugo. Masaru Bakugo's father yelled as he walked into the house carrying groceries. Both his wife and son immediately stopped. Katsuki, quit yelling at your mother and go get the groceries. Mitsuki, what did the doctor say? That my blood pressure is out of control and it isn't good for the baby, she sheepishly replied, unconsciously placing her hand on her belly. Exactly, he kissed her cheek tenderly. I have a bit of a headache, so if you two could keep it down, that would be great. You have been getting those a lot lately, Mitsuki said, placing her hand on his forehead. Also, you look so pale. She leaned forward so their heads were touching. I want you to make an appointment with the doctor. Why don't you go lay down? But the groceries, and he began to protest, he stopped seeing the concern on his wife's face. Maybe you're right, he said, setting the bags on the counter and gingerly walking towards their bedroom. Katsuki came stomping back in, but stopped seeing his dad disappear into the bedroom. What is going on with dad? All anger or annoyance was gone from his voice. He isn't feeling well, so I told him to go lay down, Mitsuki responded softly, looking down the empty hallway. I will need your help putting groceries away and dinner tonight. Katsuki nodded, struggling to take his gaze away from the hallway. What did the doctor say? Your little sister is developing just fine, Mitsuki said as, like her son, she had difficulty tearing her thoughts away from her husband. Why are you not out training or something? Katsuki could feel his voice about to rise in anger, but he looked towards the hallway and made sure to keep his voice down. Everyone has stuff to do, even stupid Akane, she said she has to do something for Auntie. But whatever, if those stupid extras don't make it into the UA, that is on them. Mitsuki raised an eyebrow. Inko said she would meet someone today. Are you sure she isn't hanging out with the girls? She noticed her son tense a bit. No, Kami said it was just her, Nini and Delilah, he grumbled. Who is she meeting? I don't know, but Inko wouldn't say. But she bought her a cute dress for today, Mitsuki paused. Maybe she is going on a date. Mitsuki watched as emotions danced rapidly across her son's face before it became a scowl. You know she is an adorable girl and is getting more beautiful daily. Someone is going to notice that sooner or later. Whatever, Katsuki growled. It is not like I care. If that stupid Deku would rather make kissy faces with some loser than train. Are you sure about that? Mitsuki pressed, making Katsuki's eyebrow twitch. Quote the raven. Ryuko Yanagi stood before her greatest enemies. With a tremble in her lip, she took a deep breath and waged into battle. The conflict was inevitable, she had to engage. If not, her prize would forever be lost. Pulling up her hood, she lowered her head and stepped onto the battlefield. Her arch-nemesis, sunlight and crowds, would not win out today. Pulling the purple hood of her cloak down more, she started to make her way through the crowds. Not only would this help to protect her from the sunlight, but she would not have to meet the gaze of strangers. She was deftly maneuvering through the battlefield, though she had to seek shelter occasionally. She had unknowingly stumbled into an enemy encampment when the artificial smell of summer flowers and various floral scents alerted her to her folly. Turning, she froze. She had stumbled not into just any enemy encampment, but the den of the enemy most feared, a viper's den, a temple of horrors, the beauty nest by Uwabami. She was frozen in her fear, which proved to be her undoing. The priestesses of Uwabami took her inaction as consent. Her protests, though weak, failed to manifest from her mind to her voice. She was in the seat before she could even think to struggle. Her hood was removed, and the light of day assaulted her with unrelenting brightness. Then they descended en masse, the second most terrifying word she had ever heard, the first being pastels. Makeover. Things were being applied to her, things she did not know the name of. Ancient devices of torture made their way into the fray. Tweezers. How could this be allowed? Ryoko thought, surely some peace treaty in a faraway land had outlawed such things. But these renegades cared not for such treaties as they descended upon her. She winced and begged for mercy, but they would give no quarter. Like a tornado of violence, they had their wicked way with her. Time ceased to have any meaning, a blur of torment, a cyclone of evil. It enveloped her mind, destroying her mental defenses till all she could do was nod and agree with the captors. She was hoping desperately to gain favor and curry a release from their grasp so she could once again walk the darkened streets of her home. To pull the curtains tight and lose herself in the musings of the masters of the macabre. She tried desperately to cling to the words of these ancient masters, King, Karloff, Lovecraft, Jackson, and Poe. She hoped invoking them would bring about a dark storm of the unknowable, a reign of darkness that would drive them from her. She was suddenly on her feet, moving again, a counter. Why was she passing over her money card, nodding like a fool? They hold a bag for her. Is it her dignity it carries, her blood, some other evil? Yet she thanks them and takes it, stumbling unthinkingly back into the open air of the marketplace. She doesn't even think of grabbing her hood to protect her from the sunlight, her folly is her undoing. It stabs at her eyes, she stumbles and barrels away, seeking respite. Instead, she stumbles into a wall and her feet slip and tumble. Gravity, the immutable law, will claim her to this day. Maybe she was foolish, maybe she dared to dream too strongly, and like Icarus, she soared above her station and was now plummeting back to the earth. It had been a short life, she hoped that her parents were not too bereft with grief, that they would mourn the appropriate time of 7 years. Her final thought was of her beloved Shadow. How would he survive with her to feed him and give him his treats? Hopefully, her mother would see him. She braced for her death, the sweet kiss of oblivion, the cool embrace of dark. Instead, she felt a strong arm slip around her waist and a hand of iron caught her arm and the warmth of being pulled from the brink by a demigod. She turned, her pale gray hair parted, the red jewel on her forehead glinted in the sunlight, her blue eyes somewhat lidded beheld the demigod who had rescued her from the precipice of death. Black hair and green eyes gazed at her, the whispered greeting, "Are you unharmed, miss?" Izuku and Akane. They had finished their lunch and Akane led Izuku to a small bookstore. When they entered, he smiled as the two workers greeted her by name, making her blush. She was picking up a book written over a century ago by an old Japanese hero named Sunfire. He listened to her gush about the old pro, talking about how the techniques he pioneered had been passed down among fire heroes like a Bible. She mentioned how even Endeavor quoted the book and was excited about the purchase. He liked how when a topic came up or something that excited her, her entire face would come alive, her eyes seemed to glow and sparkle. And it was the topics that caught Izuku's attention. Heroes, quirks, right and wrong, and helping people. She had a very positive view of heroics, of trying to walk the path of helping people and the law. Akane liked this boy, not so much in a romantic way, but the fact he was easy on the eyes certainly was a bonus. But he shared her view on heroics, and when he disagreed, he would listen and offer a counterpoint. He would ask her the best question. What happens after that? She blushed when she talked to her friends, she only sometimes would speak with her like this, and that was more so Kami. Itsuki, if it was all about beating the villain, no probing questions were asking why, societal issues didn't mean a thing. She had anticipated that he would tell her everything was good, but she was surprised to hear that he saw things that could be better and that it wasn't just him that his mother talked a lot about social issues. She had known Midnight to speak out on some issues, but not about what he talked to her about. Izuku talked a lot about volunteer work, saying that his mother would help with different charities, but not in costume to advertise her work. It wasn't about the publicity, she was surprised that Midnight was very into nature and maintaining hiking trails. She liked that Izuku was nerdy like her, he was into astronomy and fascinated by the stars. During a meteor shower, he told her about his father's proposal to his mother. He and his mom would go on a hike yearly, and he would occasionally sneak out to stargaze with his girlfriend. Akane enjoyed how he gushed about his girlfriend Mina, happily showing her pictures. Akane told him that she wanted to meet Mina next time and that she might bring her friend Kami, but the world might explode once those two got together. She was happy to stand in line with him at the opening of Edge of the Galaxy. It was a brand new store catering to outer space enthusiasts, but the kicker was that the space-themed Hero 13 would be present to sign autographs and take photos for the grand opening. He had promised to pick up a limited edition grand opening shirt and keychain. She thought it was cute how he was going to such lengths for Mina. They were standing in line with a girl from my prefecture. Her auburn hair was cut in a cute bob style. The color matched her eyes, and she had what seemed to be a permanent bush to her cheeks. Her name was Achako Uraka. Izuku and Akane fell into easy conversation with the girl. She was excited about meeting 13 and hoped to become a hero like them. This, of course, prompted Akane to ask about her quirk, zero gravity. Achako was a bit shy, but soon was overwhelmed by their enthusiasm. She didn't have anyone to talk about heroics and such at home. Soon, she was pulled into the conversation and couldn't stop smiling. Akane could barely contain her laughter when Izuku and Achako discovered their shared love of the stars. The lively discussion allowed them not to notice how long they were in line until they found themselves at the front. They all got their autographs and memorabilia. Achako even briefly talked about heroics with her favorite hero before she moved on and waited for Akane and Izuku. The trio exchanged contact information as Achako had to meet up with her parents for their trip home. Izuku and Akane went through the shopping arcade, discussing small things as their day drew close. They had stopped so she could pick something up from the stationery store when, as she came out, she saw someone barrel into Izuku. She watched as he moved faster than she could perceive and caught the girl before she fell. "Are you unharmed, miss?" he asked. "Nevermore." Ryuko sat staring up at her savior, who set her on her feet, ensuring she was stable before he removed his hands. "I apologize for putting my hands on you without your permission," Izuku bowed. "No," Ryuko said quickly. "Thank you for saving me." "You need to sit down for a moment," Akane said as she extended an unopened water bottle. Ryuko started shaking her head, but then she felt herself wobble. Izuku and Akane guided her over to a bench. Once she sat down, she pulled up her hood and took a small drink of water as she regained her composure. "I am so sorry for causing the both of you any trouble," Ryuko said, hiding her embarrassment behind her hood. "I don't do well with crowds." They looked at each other and then at the crowded shopping arcade. "Where were you trying to get to?" Akane wondered aloud. "Eclipse," Ryuko said. "I ordered something and it came in today." "I know that store," Akane said with a smile. Riko looked at her. "I have a friend, Delia, she loves that store." "White skin, black lines?" Riko asked quizzically. When Akane nodded, Ryuko smiled slightly. "I know her. We talk online some. We met there when I was buying the new Darkness album." Izuku smiled as Akane and Ryuko kept talking. Akane talked to her about something Ryuko was interested in, which helped her relax. Eventually, Akane had exhausted what she knew about the topic. Feeling better? Akane tilted her head to the side slightly. Ryuko nodded, realizing what the girl had done. "Thank you, I am Ryuko." The green-haired girl smiled. "I am Akane, and that is Izuku." Izuku smiled. "I apologize for interrupting your date," Ryuko bowed. They both immediately waved their arms, protesting that it was certainly not a date. Ryuko tilted her head to the side when this happened. Didn't that mean it was a date? She wondered. "How about we go with you?" Izuku asked. "I have never been to that shop, I want to check it out." Ryuko was going to protest, but she felt it would be rude to do so after all they had done for her. They probably just wanted to ensure she was alright. "Yes, that sounds nice. Let us depart." Izuku walked into Eclipse and was assaulted by the lack of color and loud angry music. He had to concentrate for a moment due to the store's volume and his hearing. Once that was done, he followed the girls around the store. Ryuko approached the counter and Akane wandered around the store. At first, Izuku smiled, seeing a few things with his mother's name, but not what it implied. As he walked about the store, he happened to make his way to the back, where he found himself in the land of leather and lace. He found himself staring at the things on the wall, and when he came across a leather corset, his mind immediately filled it in with a pink-skinned girl he knew very well, images of her in leather pants, a leather skirt, patterned stockings, maybe even a garter belt. He shook his head and fled to where Akane was looking at a wall of shirts. Scanning the wall, he found a few of his mom's shirts and a perfect shirt for Mina. It had the Xenomorph Queen sitting on a throne with the caption "Long live the Queen." Ryuko came over, holding her package with a huge smile. After Izuku made his purchase, they exited the shop. "Thank you both for coming with me," Ryuko smiled. "Ryuko," a deep mocking voice suddenly rang in her head. How easily you smile, sweet little raven, my dear, never born. How easily you pretend. How easily you smile. Would they share your smile? Would they show such compassion? I need to remind you that you belong to me. You can run and pretend all you want, but we both know how this ends. A gentle reminder is in order. Riko's smile faltered as she suddenly looked around, afraid. Izuku, as did Akane, picked up on the sudden change in her demeanor. Ryuko scanned frantically, desperately searching, and then the screams began. All three of their heads whipped around towards the sound. It was then that out of the crowd, suddenly, 5 people came leaping out at them. They were all different, there were 3 men and 2 women, one of the men even appeared to be an elderly gentleman. What made them similar was that they all seemed to have 3 sets of eyes stacked one above the other. Each set glowed a brilliant fiery orange, and long protruding fangs and claws protruded from their hands with the same hue as their eyes. The lead woman was about to descend on Ryuko before she or Akane could react, but that was not the case for Izuku, who stepped forward and grabbed the attacker's arms and threw them off to the side. He spun past a claw swipe from the second, shoving them aside. The third attacker's strike hit true, but what surprised Izuku was that the attack sent a flood of pain through him as it shredded his clothes and back, sending him to his knees. Ryuko's quirk sprang to life, a purple glow surrounded the male attacker as he was flung away, crashing into the corner of a nearby shop. Akane took a deep breath as the air around her ignited her, a jet of fire manifested forth, and it solidified as much as she could, flying into the gut of the fourth attacker, sending them tumbling to the ground as they screamed in pain. Akane quickly shirted the pillar to their right, it expanded into a wall where Ryuko had thrown the third attacker. Izuku managed to recover as the fifth came at him with a wild claw swipe, he quickly ducked under the attack and drove a solid blow to the attacker's gut, driving the wind from the attacker. Or it should have, but they were enhanced in some manner. Wasting no time, he drove a fist into the back of their head, driving them to the pavement. When they collided, a guttural groan escaped their lips and the 2 sets of eyes faded, as did the claws. To Izuku, it seemed like an unknown power had taken them over, and whatever connection was there was severed when they lost consciousness. Akane was never more thankful for all that damn training Katsuki put her through. When the second attacker came at her, she stepped forward, planted her feet, twisted her hips, and launched a right hook. It is connected with thunderous force. All Might would have shuddered at how well she delivered the hit. It landed right on the chin, its head rotated, and all the eyes rolled as their lights were turned out. Ryuko's eyes narrowed in annoyance as 2 of their attackers rose into the air and collided roughly before they fell to the ground unconscious. Izuku grabbed her, pulled her aside from a claw swipe, and turned the last attacker's lights out with a strong uppercut. He felt a pang of guilt as it was the old man who went crashing to the ground. Akane grabbed her hand, and as the screams of panic continued, Izuku could see more of the 6-eyed people rushing around. He saw another group break from a pack and run at them, but Riko stepped in front of her new friends before they got close. Azarath Metrian Zinthos, she called out as her hood and cloak fluttered by an unseen wind. Akane and Izuku watched in awe as most of the possessed attackers rose into the air, this time though they were surrounded by purple energy. Within that field, it turned black, the attackers were outlined in white as they rose into the air. Ryuko raised her hand in a fist and screamed the strange words again. Akane and Izuku watched as all the people looked like they were being squeezed. Their heads drooped and the signs of their possession faded. Gently lowered to the ground, Riko stumbled and fell back as her eyes rolled back in her head. Izuku caught her quickly, lowering her to the ground. As he did so, Akane stepped in front of them, dancing around her fingers, scanning the crowd. They could hear the panic dying as their attackers were on the floor and pro-heroes were flooding the area. Loved ones were rushing towards their fallen partners or family, confused and scared at what had happened. Izuku could see people trying to explain and pointing towards their group, as many people were drawn by not only Akane's fire, but Ryuko's display before she passed out. He focused his hearing and could hear the responding heroes calling for more backup and emergency crews as they walked toward him. He suddenly wobbled, a searing heat was radiating from his back like it was on fire. As carefully as he could, he laid Ryuko down. Akane turned to check on her new friends and saw Izuku sweating and looking like death warmed over. "Holy hell, Izuku, are you alright?" Akane said. "Akane," he managed to choke out. "Call your mother, I need," was all he said as his eyes rolled back into his head. He fell forward suddenly, but Akane was there to keep him from face planting. Kami was sitting on the ground, taking deep breaths. Everything had suddenly gone from a great shopping day to chaos. When the 6-eyed monsters started attacking people, she called Nini and Dahlia to grab people and pull them into the store. When the psychos attacked them, Kami used her quirk to trap them in an illusion, making them fight each other until only one was standing. Nini activated her quirk amongst the panicked people, and an aura of calm and peace spread over them, leaving them almost zombie-like as they sat huddled in the back. Dahlia stepped in front of the group, the black lines running off her body and into the real world. She weaved them into a net to prevent anyone from coming through to the group. When the final psycho had managed to break through of Kami's illusion here and straight into the web, Dahlia collapsed it on him like a spider capturing a fly for later. When the heroes arrived, Kami released her quirk and sank down, taking a deep breath. Dahlia left the person cocooned until the heroes came in, and Nini fell to her knees, releasing people from their trance. As more and more officers flooded the scene, the attackers were being taken into temporary custody till it could be ascertained what exactly had happened. The heroes Harlequin and Ms. Joke had started to move towards the trio along with Jester when they saw the boy collapse. Quickly, they raced over. EMTs were arriving as all the chaos had hurt people and the attackers had wounded some. What happened? Jester asked as he slid to the ground next to a cane, helping her to roll Izuku onto his side. Blood was beginning to stain the concrete around them from the deep gouge on his back. Ms. Joke came to Ryuko's side and moved her out of the way. As she did so, Ryuko's eyes fluttered open and she attempted to sit up in a panic. "It's okay, my girl. Everything is under control and the heroes are on the scene," Ms. Joke said quickly. Ryuko looked around and saw two heroes attending to Izuku. Jester scooped up Izuku. "This kid is on fire and we need to get him to the EMTs. What is his name?" "Izuku Kayama," Akane said quickly. "His mother is Midnight." Jester's eyes widened slightly, understood. "Harlequin, see if you can raise her on the hero network." "I didn't know she had a kid," Emi muttered. "Midnight. That is it. I will never let him out of my sight again," Namuri screamed. She managed to hold her panic under control for the most part as she quickly contacted Chio, thankful that Izuku's grandmother had returned to the UA and was near enough to get to the hospital for Izuku. Nezu was scrambling to have his ambulance rerouted to the hero facility as containment was becoming a high priority. They didn't want Izuku's blood samples getting out into the world. There was also the concern that Ms. Joke, Akaimi, had reported that Izuku was bleeding from a deep gash across his back and that he was running a fever. Izuku had never been sick with a cold for most of his life. There was only a small one not long after he arrived, but he shook it off quickly. Then there was the cut. To date, nothing of record had been able to cut him since he was 8. Needles, even special ones designed for people with super tough skin or invulnerability quirks, had stopped working at 10. Midnight hit the talk on her phone and said a silent prayer. Brainiac. The moments of silence that followed were deafening until a calm voice rang out from the car speakers. "Yes, Namuri Kayama. From the elevated tone in your voice, I can only surmise that something is wrong with Kal-El," Brainiac said. "He was attacked today while on an outing. He has been cut and is running a fever," Namuri said quickly. "He is being taken to a hospital as we speak. I am too far away." Chio is en route to him and Nezu is trying to get him routed to Hero Hospital, she said as she weaved through traffic. "It would not be in Cal's best interest if others were to get a sample of his blood," Brainiac said, his tone measured. "It would be complicated to explain his sample." "I know that. Is there anything you can do?" Namuri pleaded. "Yes, give me a moment," Brainiac replied and the deafening silence filled the car once again. "I am rerouting him to a private medical facility. They are under strict order to hold for recovery girl due to the unique mutation to his physiology. I am updating them that they are not to attempt to provide fluids as his mutation will prevent them from puncturing his skin. They will be able to flush and pack the wound on his back. I am accessing this hospital's systems if they try to run the blood from the wound to see what the cause of the infection is. I am extremely concerned that something has injured him in such a fashion and with such ease." "You and me both," Namuri responded. "We need to put something in place in case this happens again." "I agree. I will begin a backlog of medical data showing that his mutation has affected him down to a cellular level," Brainiac said. "As his body absorbs solar radiation, thus giving him his powers, it can be explained that this has caused the mutation. While his body still will pass as human, it should deflect most concerns unless he becomes a case study for a geneticist." "Which hospital are you routing him to?" "Hyde Medical is the closest facility to UA," he responded. "Thank you, Brainiac," Namuri said, feeling slightly better. "I understand your wish to thank me, but I am just doing what my programming dictates is in the best interest of Cal," Brainiac's voice rang out. "But you are welcome, Namuri Kayama." Namuri updated Nezu and Chio before she called Mina to let her know what had happened as Izuku was unlikely to be home tonight. Mina was worried and a little panicked, but she held together when she learned Chio was on her way. After she extrapolated Midnight's promise to keep her updated, they disconnected. Namuri sighed as she sped from Tokyo to Mustafa. Maybe she needed to take that teacher position after all. Tormented dreams filled his mind and nonsense and fear ran rampant. He saw Mina fall, her turn from him. Vicious mocking laughter filled his ears as he called to her to stay. Unseen shadows pulled her from him into a twisted embrace. At his feet would lie his mother and uncles, his grandfather cradling his grandmother's lifeless form and asking why he did it. Why had he brought such ruin and destruction upon the world? He looked about the hellish post-apocalyptic hellscape, the throne of bone and skull he sat upon, a feeling of barely satiated bloodlust lurking in his chest. He tried to ask for answers, but instead, cruel words tumbled from his lips as his heat vision reduced his grandfather to ash. Mina is thrown to the ground before him, dressed in rags and bound in chains, as he demands her obedience. Her tears, as she rebukes him, rebukes what he has become and the death of their love, that all affection in her has been burned away with his evil. She begs instead for death, so that she may dream of the times when they danced in the sun, soared above the clouds, and she dared to believe that he was a good man. He can feel, as his hand slips around her throat, the gentle application of pressure. She doesn't fight or claw at his hand. Instead, she smiles, as the light in her eyes fades, she thanks him for granting her this final gift. As she tumbles from his grasp, there is no sense of loss or remorse, a sense of the last shackle falling away and the last link in the chain being broken. Now there is nothing to stop him, nothing will hold him back, this world will struggle and fall in just a matter of days, then the next one, till there is nothing left but a place he has stepped upon and those who dared not to bend the knee. The guttural scream erupts from his lips as he bolts upright in a hospital bed, it echoes off the walls and vibrates the windows. Everything is in a daze out of focus, something holds his arm, chains, he yanks them away, and the links clatter like explosions. He turns and can see the scraps of the bonds on the ground, with little strain, he pulls his other arm free, he tries to get out of bed, but stumbles and falls. Tears begin to drop as he calls out, and the door bursts open as he staggers to his feet, stumbling, he tries to use his hand to brace himself, only for it to go through the wall. Shadows fill the room, curses and threats muffled and constantly bombard him. He prepares to fight, to break free, his eyes glow red, and the shadows hesitate. He roars threats and promises of pain that they cannot keep him, that they will not hold him. A shadow leaps at him, grabbing his face, he is prepared to end this creature, then stops. Soft, divine hands were on the side of his face, and there was a scent of violet and vanilla, little pokes of pressure against his forehead, and curly hair pressing against him. The red of his eyes fades, the shadow begins to clear, and a voice calls him back, one of love, tenderness, comfort, and longing. A gentle pressure against his lips, familiar sweetness and shadows wash away as his mind clears. Mina is kneeling before him, holding his face and kissing him. Hesitantly, fearfully, he kisses her back, he can hear her whispered calls to return to her stop and turn to declarations of love. He returns her declaration, and as everything begins to come into focus, beyond Mina is his mother and hospital staff, as well as his uncles. As he and Mina break apart, he gives his mother a weak and tired smile, "Hi mom." As the room's chaos settles, Mina helps Izuku to his feet and back to the hospital bed. "Are you alright?" she whispers. "I am now," he replies, giving a tender brief kiss. "Honey, what happened?" his mother says, taking his hand. "Nightmares, even when I woke up, they were still there. I couldn't see or hear anything, it was like everyone was wrapped in shadows," Izuku said. "They were horrible, so real, so." Izuku takes a deep breath and does his best to recount the nightmares in their realistic nature. Azashi hands Mina a damp cloth so she can whip Izuku's brow and face as he is covered in sweat. She finishes this as Chio comes in. She tries in vain to get Nimi and Mina to step back before settling in on them, holding his hand as she examines him. "Well, the fever has finally broken," Chio says with a smile for her grandson. "We will need to run some tests back at UA. Before I feel comfortable releasing him. You gave us quite the scare there, young man, being asleep for 3 days is not normal." 3 days? He said shocked. "Wait, are Kane and Ryuko safe?" "Yes, they are fine," Namiri said. "There were some injuries during the attack, but everyone is fine." "Can you tell us everything you can remember?" Aizawa said, getting his attention. Izuku took a deep breath and recounted his day with Kane, including meeting Ryuko and Ichako, lunch and shopping, and then the sudden attack. Everyone was very interested as he described how all the attackers had a similar look with red eyes and claws, and how the claws injured him so easily. Aizawa felt a sense of pride that Izuku hadn't relied on his invulnerability but was caught off guard by multiple attackers. Izuku described the pain and how it threw him off momentarily, as he had never experienced something like that, and the shock of it being done so quickly, he even questioned if somehow his invulnerability had been broken. His mother assured him that was not the case as they couldn't puncture his skin to administer any IV or antibiotics. They could only do so somewhat through the wound on his back, which seemed to resist his accelerated healing that had passed in the first 24 hours, but the fever did not. The fever and fear of infection had brought Mina to his side, she worried he had not woken up. Namuri had confirmed that aside from when he was just a baby, there was no record of him ever being sick. Coupled with the threat of an unknown infection, it had caused a bit of a panic. The quick reassurance of Brainiac managing his medical records eased the sudden panic Izuku expressed about being in an actual hospital. Izuku was surprised when his Ashi and Aizawa asked the ladies out so Izuku could shower and get cleaned up. Aizawa helped him to the bathroom while his Ashi oversaw changing his linens and getting him a fresh gown. His uncle sat outside the shower, talking to Izuku to ensure his nephew didn't fall and hurt himself and asking questions about the encounter and his play date. Once he had freshened up, the girls returned with Mina and his mother fussing over him. Food was brought in so he could eat. Once he ate, he would be released to Chio, who would take him back to UA to run tests. Aside from being slightly dehydrated, she felt he was in decent shape without more tests. Izuku was surprised to see texts and concerns from Akane and Ryuko once he checked his phone, and there was even one from Lex. Lex. If you are dead, have someone tell me so I can plan the party. Izuku. Sorry, still alive. Lex. Well, at least Mina won't cry. Mina was hesitant to leave him, but she had already missed a few days of school, and her parents were insistent that she return home now that Izuku was awake. The adults left the two teens alone to say their goodbyes as if it would be years and not a day or two before they would see each other again. Of course, they said goodbye by kissing, not so much with words. Mina pouted as they broke apart for the third last time, but a knock from his mother and an announcement about her imminent entry ensured that it would be. Once Mina and his uncles were gone, Namuri sat and smiled as she watched her son almost be a typical teenager, sending miss you texts to Mina and reaching out to new and old friends, letting them know he was better. She knew her son was destined for greatness, his powers screamed that he would be spoken of in the same breath as All Might, Endeavor, Stars and Stripes, Marvel, Primal, King, and other top heroes across the world, yet she fretted, she worried. With his ability to rarely be hurt and his big heart, she knew he would be running headlong into things that no one should and that he may be the only one who could. She looked at her son, the last rays of sunlight streaming in from the window, bathing him in a reddish glow. Izuku would fly higher and go farther than anyone could dream, and she knew she couldn't go with him. She wanted her boy to succeed and do better than her, but she may have wanted him to be closer for a while longer. He was running into tomorrow so quickly that she could barely keep up. She knew that one day, the sun would rise on the day when she had been left behind. The Luthers. You don't need to be here, son, Lionel said. Lex sighed. His father was a bit disheveled and not quite mad scientist level, but the look in his eyes betrayed the unhealthy obsession. That is where you are wrong, Dad, Lex said. I do need to be here. You can't keep running this as Black Op without telling the board what you are doing here or giving them something that will not make you seem like a madman. Look, the board can go pound sand, they can't make me do anything, Lionel said, both hands resting on the desk as his eyes bore into his son. What I am doing is the most critical thing in the world. You don't understand. Then help me to understand, Lex said, mirroring his father's posture. The board is going to move for a vote of no confidence and remove you as the head of Luthor Corporation. I will have to step in at that point, cut your funding, and start getting you declared incapable of making financial decisions and take conservatorship over you. Lionel glared at Lex, and Lex could feel his father's tenuous hold on rational thought. I don't want to, but I can't have you burning your fortune trying to invent a better mousetrap. Dad, I know that you are doing this for a reason, I know that it scared you and is dangerous. Let me help. I will handle the board, but we must do this together. Lionel began to pace, muttering to himself. He ran his hands through his hair several times before stopping and taking a deep breath. I was contacted by an old friend who brought us onto a top-secret project, Lionel began. Now listen to me, Lex, this is why I haven't talked to the board, if I did, I would violate the contract and the penalty would be stiff. But we were researching a vessel that had crash-landed in Fukushima. Lex took a seat. This hint of madness in his father's voice made Lex want to dismiss what his father was saying, but the pleading in Lionel's eyes made Lex, for now at least, agree to listen. According to the reports and data, this vessel had crashed through a forest and buried itself in the mountains. The amazing part is that it seemed completely undamaged, not even a dent, Lionel said, his pace quickening. We immediately went to work, believing that maybe this was a secret aircraft of a foreign government, but no one had come forward to claim the vessel. Then it resisted everything we tried to put, even a scratch on it. Nothing, we couldn't even get a chip off of it, analyze it. Lex's eyes widened. Diamond drill. Lionel shook his head. Heated deep-sea coring laser. Again, Lionel shook his head. Freezing. Malfor penetration. Lex kept rattling off things, and his father told him no to everything. The only thing that had elicited any response from the vessel was when the XR-28 series was used on it. Lex's eyes widened, those were military-grade weapons. He sat down on the stool, slightly dumbfounded. What did it do? It destroyed the weapon, Lionel said. It didn't leave a mark on the vessel, but it was the first time we had gotten a response. We believed for a time that it was some drone, a remote vessel designed to observe, as we had the vessel under constant surveillance for years, and to the best of our knowledge, no one had come out. But if the drone reacted in a way to defend itself, why would it let itself sit in containment and not fulfill its mission? Lex said. His father motioned for him to keep going. Nothing on Earth that we are aware of could resist all those attempts without leaving some evidence behind, and if this were something created in a lab somewhere, then the cost would not be something any corporation could just write off. Lex stood and started to pace. For the onboard systems to react to a hostile threat means having unheard of battery or power capabilities. Again, nothing some could just let go without attempting to get it back. Lex stopped. So if the logical reason is that this can't be Earth-made, then it has to be extraterrestrial. It couldn't be a drone, it had to be a form of transport. Exactly. Lionel said. Then suddenly, the thing powered up. We detected a very faint signal that wasn't being sent anywhere on Earth, it was being beamed into space. It broke free of confinement and escaped. It must have emitted a minimal trace amount of an unknown radiation, Lex said as he punched his hand. That is why you took that satellite and pointed towards the Earth. You want to see if that thing is still here, and if the ship carried that radiation, then maybe who or whatever it brought here does as well. Yes, son, yes. Lionel jumped for joy. You see, son, there are aliens here. I think with the advent of quirks, they have started to mingle among us as they can blend in easier if they had some physical mutation. They are here, and I believe that signal was some distress call, and I believe more are on the way. That is why I built this island. I am looking for a way not only for us to defend ourselves, but protect us as well. You believe their intentions hostile? Lex asked. What happens when one race encounters another of inferior technology or what they deem inferior species? Lionel replied. Enslavement or extinction, Lex said quietly. And if they are peaceful? Then we are about to make contact with a peaceful race, but we cannot assume that all we encounter will be as such. The question of whether we are alone in the galaxy has been answered, but we do not know their intentions, Lionel said. Now, do you understand why I need to keep working? Lex nodded. Yes, but we need to give the board something. We need a trickle of inventions from this place, something we can sell and market. As long as revenue is generated, that will keep them quiet. I think we have a few things we can give them, Lionel said with a smile. What do you want me to do? Lex said. You have done enough by coming here, listening, and believing, Lionel said as he placed his hand on Lex's shoulder. Go to Island, finish your education, make connections. If you come across anyone promising to send them our way, I hope that these are things that we are working on that we never have to use. It's better to have it than not needed, Lex said. I will do what you ask, keep me in the loop and get rest. I will, son, I will, Lionel said. Melissa marveled. All Might was still in recovery. After dozens of surgeries, he had hopefully completed his last one. It would be a few days before he could even try and see if he could still be a hero. He could still feel one for all coursing through his body, but it was different and weaker, as the damage he had sustained had damaged his body so severely that he may not be able to wield the quirk as he once did. He had talked to David and even his niece Melissa. The lies had flown as there were reports that All Might was missing. A carefully crafted press release had quieted those fears across the nation. Questions had been circulating about who the villain he had battled with, along with the blur of a hero that aided him in securing victory. All Might had used his considerable influence and power to keep young Kayama's name out of the press, citing that a civilian came to his aid and they wished to remain that way. This boy was extraordinary, his powers and abilities were growing, and he was stronger every time they clashed. He had battled All for One, and he was sure that the villain had attempted to steal Izuku's quirk and failed. That never happened. The only time it happened was with One for All, and that was because of the quirk's nature. All Might sat back and stared at the ceiling. If he couldn't still be a hero, he would need to find a successor. Thankfully, this one would not be burdened by the specter of All for One. His successor would be able to live their lives in relative peace. He thought I should find a successor even if I could still be a hero. Young Kayama seems ideal, but there are questions I need answered. Melissa maybe. I don't think David would do well with that. There is young Ishido, who puts herself between her friends and One for All, a very brave and also very dangerous. The following symbol of peace with a physical mutation could go a long way to closing that gap. He had his eyes closed as the thoughts of the future consumed him. He felt a sudden rush of wind, and immediately, he knew someone was in his room. He bolted upright, grimacing in pain. He heard a gasp and whispered words spoken in worry and horror. Uncle Might. Melissa. He stammered out. He clicked on the lights, and at the foot of his bed was his niece, Melissa Shield. But it wasn't her at the same time. She was donning a white top with a thick gold lightning bolt on the front, which perfectly fit around her more developed figure. A white cape with the same metallic gold trim hung off one shoulder, falling just below her knees. Her eyes were drawn towards the white skirt and gold boots. She was taller, he could see muscles she didn't have before. "Melissa, what happened to you?" "No, my God." Melissa's hands went to her mouth. "Uncle Mike, are you? Oh my God." He could see the tears welling and beginning to fall. He would have assumed some villain, but why would they go through all this trouble of impersonating his adopted niece? Her voice stripped that thought from his mind. Slowly, she walked to the side of the bed and hesitantly, she reached out and touched his arm. He did his best to smile for her, opening his arms for a hug. He could feel her trepidation as she hugged him. He broke a sob as she began to cry on his shoulder. "It will be okay, little Melissa," he repeated as he soothed her. Finally, she calmed down and stepped back. She pulled a chair over and sat at his bedside, holding his hand. "How did this happen?" she whispered. "I did battle with an ancient enemy," he said. "My greatest enemy, and though it nearly cost me my life, I was able to win. But Melissa, please explain this to me. How did this happen? Why are you here? How is it that you look the way you do?" "I knew you were lying and hiding something when we talked," Melissa said. "I tracked your phone and flew here to check on you. I saw you lying in this bed through the window, and before I knew it, I was in the room. And this transformation. What outfit are you wearing? These powers you are demonstrating." He squeezed her hand. "Okay, having to say this out loud will sound crazy, but I swear I am not crazy, Uncle Mike." Melissa closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "I met a wizard and they gave me these powers to help save the world from possible demonic and experiential threats that will one day threaten the planet." She opened one eye to peek at him, wincing. "You're correct. That does sound crazy," he responded, he could see her shoulders slump. "But you would never lie to me, so tell me everything." Melissa smiled at his words, and slowly, she began to recant the story of how she had been transported to the cave where the wizard sat, the place she called the Rock of Eternity. The vision she had been shown was that the wizard was dying and desperately searching for a successor, someone to take up the mantle and help protect the world. "I saw someone standing over you, Uncle Mike. I wanted to come see you right away. That is why I messaged you, but you said you were alright. And I kept feeling you were lying to me, but I knew you were when we talked. So I had to come see you." Melissa sighed. "I was going to come to you immediately, but then I saw the news report that you were hospitalized. So you now have these abilities, and it isn't a quirk," he said, trying to make sense of everything. "I am sorry for lying to you, little Melissa, but I didn't want to scare you. And I did not have many answers myself, I still don't." Melissa sighed and lowered her head to his hand. Then she muttered something quietly, and there was a flash of light and rumble from outside. Before him was the Melissa he had seen on the phone. "See, it is a magic transformation kind of thing. I have to speak a special word and boom, lightning, and I transform." She smiled. "I did do the test, and I still show up as quirkless Pinky Joint, no quirk factor, but now I can be a hero, Uncle Mike. I don't have to just sit on the sidelines and wait, I can be by your side." "Little Melissa, it is not my place to say what you can and cannot do, but I will say that if you plan on becoming a hero, then you need to tell your father about this, and I would like you to enroll at UA, so you can learn from the best." He took her hand, he couldn't help but smile as her face brightened. "I will do my best to train and guide you, and after I get out of here, you can come and show me what you can do." "I will, I promise, Uncle Mike." She wiped a straight tear. "I promise to talk to my dad." She kissed his forehead. "But no more lying, I told you the truth. I want you to do the same with me," she said. "I know you are holding something back, but I have faith that you will tell me when it is right." She smiled, got to her feet, and ran towards the window with a devilish smirk. He saw her leap out and sat up to rush to her, but he froze. He heard her say something. Then, a great lightning bolt came out of the sky and struck her. She was powered up in a flash. "Love you, Uncle Mike." "I love you too, little Melissa," he said as she zoomed off. Izuku out the window. "I wonder if it will rain soon." Not everything goes to plan. But Izuku stuttered. "I don't want to move." "I understand, Izuku, but I have decided to take the teaching position at UA," his mother said, her hand on his knee. "I won't be home enough to allow you to stay here alone. Your uncles already teach there, and I feel this is the right move for us." "But Mina, my friends," Izuku lamented. "Mom, this isn't fair, I don't want to leave Mina." "Izuku, you are not breaking up, you are just moving to a different city," Nomuri said. "It isn't like you won't be able to come see her, or she can come see you." "It isn't the same, and you know that," Izuku said, sitting back and staring at the ceiling. "Mom, why are you doing this? Everything was going so well. Now I have to start over." "It won't be starting over," Nomuri countered. "I looked into it and I can enroll you in the same school as Akane." "Great, I get to go to school with someone I just met," Izuku rolled his eyes. "Hey, can I follow you around like a lost puppy? This is bullshit." "Izuku Kayama," Nomuri said. "What? You say all the time? I hear you and my uncles say much worse at night," he protested. And I am sorry, but this isn't fair. Why do I have to give up my life because you want to be a teacher at UA? Because this isn't some anime where I am going to leave my teenage son alone in some city while I go somewhere for work," Nomuri said, feeling irritated. She wasn't used to this level of defiance or pushback from Izuku. She took a deep breath. "Izuku, I know that this won't be easy, and I know that you will miss Mina, but this won't be for forever, she will apply to UA as well. What would you do if she didn't get in? Are you not going to go to UA and go wherever she does? Do you think she would like that you are giving up on UA for her? She would appreciate the gesture, but she would want me to go to UA," he said after a pause. "I have no problem with you flying up to see her, we can even get you licensed to do so," Nomuri said. She loved her son and knew how much he cared for Mina and vice versa. But this would allow them to grow some without the other right there next to them. "Promise?" he said finally. "Do I ever lie to you?" Nomuri said, hugging him. "You used to tell me that if I ate my spinach, I would get super strength," he countered, snuggling into the hug. "Well, you did, didn't you?" Nomuri laughed. "That had nothing to do with the spinach, and you know that," Izuku countered. "I have to tell Mina." "Go ahead, but be home by curfew," Nomuri said as he was gone, blown away by a gust of wind. "Of course," Mina cried, which upset him. Her parents let the two teens wallow in their angst about the cruelties of life. They both promised they would stay together and talk every day. Mina brightened up when he told her about being able to fly up and see her whenever he wanted. Ultimately, her parents were surprised when Mina told Izuku that it wouldn't be that bad and that it was just a few miles away. A long train ride for her or a short flight for him, but she did promise that she would get into UA with him no matter what. "You would think they were moving to different countries," Max whispered to his wife. "Oh, you be quiet," Kara said. "I remember someone freaking out when I changed my major and we wouldn't be in the same classes anymore." "That was different," he protested. "How was that different? We still went to the same school," she raised an eyebrow. "Because it was," he mumbled. "Let them be, I think it's sweet," she said, grabbing and leading him to the kitchen. The interrogation. "Hey, Akane, you have a second?" Kami called out. "Sure, Kami, what's up?" Akane slowed her pace on the way to her locker. "I want to ask about your date the other day." Kami smirked. I don't know what you are talking about." Akane deflected, resuming her pace. "You don't Kami said as she put her phone in front of Akane to see the photo of her and Izuku eating lunch. "We saw you. You were laughing, playing with your hair. So who is he?" Akane grabbed Kami's hand and yanked her into the bathroom. Okay, it wasn't a date. His mom is a pro hero and my mom met him at the hospital. They set it up like we were 5. "Your mother set you up on a playdate?" Kami said in shock. "Yes, exactly," Akane said quickly. "I didn't want to do it, but then she told me he was a kid of a pro. And you couldn't resist because of that?" Kami said, nodding her head. "Who is the pro?" "I can't tell you, sorry," Akane said. "He asked me to keep to myself. So, I didn't know if it would be weird or creepy, but he is a nice guy. He has a girlfriend for whom he is head over heels, so it was cool. He wants to be a hero, so we just talked about stuff. Then we got attacked and he got messed up. He is fine now. I have been messaging him and this girl with us at the attack and we met this other one while in line for some space store." "Why were you in line for a space store?" Kami wondered. "And he went down to those freaks. His girlfriend is super into aliens and stuff. It was a grand opening and he wanted to get her something and some swag, so we stood in line," Akane said, looking around to make sure someone wasn't listening. "And one got him across the back with those claws, I think they were poisoned because he started to run a fever and passed out." "That makes sense then. I'm glad that he is okay, at least. But are you saying you didn't think he was cute?" Kami said, looking at the picture. "Okay, I am not blind. He is cute, but he has a girlfriend and he is cool. He wants to be a hero, of course, and it isn't all about beating people up and not everything is a freaking competition," Akane said. "Besides, we are just texting a bit and it is unlikely that I will see him again." "So what you are saying is that you are into him?" Kami's smile came out in full force. "See, this is why I didn't want to tell you." Akane threw up her hands and went to walk away. "Sorry, Aka, I was just teasing you," Kami said. "Well, I am glad that you made some friends." "Thank you. Besides, one of the girls I met already knows Delia," Akane said as they exited. "Oh, who was that?" "She said her name was Ryuko," Akane replied. "Hey, I thought you had a thing for Bakugo," Kami said as Akane made a gagging noise. "No hell no," Akane rolled her eyes. "I don't want everything to be a competition and we don't see eye to eye on stuff. He is cool to hang out with and he is my friend, but that is it." Cool, Kami said. "Do you like him?" "I think he's pretty cute. I didn't want to step on my girl's toes, that is all," Kami said, blushing just ever so slightly. All yours, girl, all yours, Akane said with a smile. The truth. After 2 months, All Might was finally released from the hospital. Thankfully, he could still call upon One for All, but maintaining his battle form was not what it once was. He was forced out of his buff form against his will. He couldn't just turn it on and off at will, his time as a hero was not limited. After what Chio had told him, she expected his time limit to get shorter. If he pushed himself or went too hard, it would only hasten the decline. He stopped in front of the door to Nezu's office. He needed to get some answers regarding Izuku Kayama. After a brief delay, he entered and took a seat. Had Chio told you what is going on? No, my friend, Nezu said, setting 2 cups of tea on the table as he sat in the chair next to All Might. She sent the report, but I destroyed it. I figured if you wanted to tell me, then you would. I appreciate that, Nezu, All Might sighed. I fear that my time as the symbol of peace is now not only numbered but limited. The more I use it, the worse it will get before there will be no other choice but for me to step aside. Who knows? Nezu said sympathetically. Chio, you, All Might said. I plan on telling the others, including Night Eye. I understand. Do you plan on passing on One for All? Nezu inquired. I do. I hadn't given it much thought before, at least not seriously. But now I feel that I have to, All Might said, sipping his tea and smiling. They will be the first not to live with the specter of All for One, they can live a full and safe life. Do you have any candidates? Nezu said. All Might shook his head. No, I just barely began to consider it, I wanted to talk with you about that, All Might said. Me? Nezu said, confused. I wouldn't presume to tell you whom to pass it to, it would be your choice. It is my choice, but I want to talk to you about Izuku Kayama, your grandson, Nezu nodded. The boy is talented, and his quirk is strong. Adding All for One would push him beyond, I think, anything that has ever been seen. All Might noticed a slight twitch for just a second by Nezu. But there is something that is bothering me. And what is that? Nezu said calmly. I saw All for One touch him and try to take his quirk, which failed. I have sparred a few times with young Kayama and know how formidable he is at such a young age. It is uncanny, especially the growth between the first and second time we fought. He also was able to not only catch All for One off guard, but he was able to land a blow. All Might paused. Now I have never seen All for One not be able to take someone's quirk, except One for All as it must be given freely. Also, I have never seen one with a quirk like his, he displays multiple quirks. It all stems from Nezu began to say. I have fought many villains, and I am fairly familiar with how quirks work, All Might cut him off. Except for All for One's henchmen who have shown an adverse effect to housing multiple quirks, and a rare breed of people who have 2 quirks, I have not seen 1 or even 2 quirks that could account for all of his abilities. Nezu stood quiet, super strength, invulnerability, flight, heightened senses, X-ray vision, heat vision. Super strength could carry a measure of invulnerability, heightened senses could maybe explain the X-ray vision. That leaves flight and heat vision, so 4 possible quirks. All Might set his tea down. Now I know in my heart that this boy has no connection to All for One, and I know that he is a good kid with a strong sense of right and wrong, but I believe I am owed an explanation. Nezu paused. All Might, for the first time, saw his friend at a loss for words as he seemed to be struggling with his answer. Please excuse me for a minute. I need to make a phone call, Nezu said as he left the room. All Might waited for about 20 minutes before Nezu came walking back in. Who did you need to call? He asked. I had to talk with the boy's mother, Nezu said. I want to preference what I am about to tell you. With as much trust you have put in me to keep your secret, she and I are asking for that same level of trust. Just as if the truth about your quirk came to light, it would shake the world as we know it. If the truth about my grandson came to life, I could do more than shake the world, I could very well rock it to its core. The safety of those he cares about would be at great risk. Do you not mean his safety? All Might said. No, I fear for his mother, girlfriend, and all those who care about him, Nezu said. I would then fear for those who drove him over the edge because I am not sure that anyone could stop him. Are you saying he is dangerous? All Might said, his tone is taking a slight edge. No, he is everything you believe he is, Nezu said. But that is predicated on his love for his family and those he holds dear. If they were to be attacked or harmed because of what I am about to share with you, then I believe that in his anger, his rage, and his sorrow, he can be broken. And like all people, when broken, they can be dangerous, but with his abilities, that is even more so. My grandson does not possess a quirk, Nezu said. All Might's immediate reaction was to tell Nezu he was lying, but then he thought of Melissa. His abilities result from his unique DNA, which absorbs solar radiation, empowering him with all the abilities you listed. So his quirk is solar radiation absorption. All Might said, confused. Is it some type of mutation quirk? It is a mutation, but not in the traditional sense that we have come to think of it, Nezu paused. This solar absorption is not unique to just Izuku, but to his entire race. His race All Might's eyes widened. Are you saying? Yes, All Might, Izuku is not human, nor did he originate from this planet, Nezu said. Izuku is living proof that we are not alone in the galaxy. It is terrifying, wonderful, and unsettling. How many others are there? All Might asked. Are there more of him here on Earth? Are more of them coming? What is their purpose? None that we know of, and we don't know for sure, Nezu said. Izuku is the last son of the planet Krypton. Akane sat in class. It was just another morning, she idly tapped her pencil, not overthinking about the empty seat next to her as the class finished filling up. Kami was going on about some idol group that she had seen their debut last night and how they were the absolute best, most talented one ever to take the stage. This was nothing new, another group would emerge in about a month or two and she would move on to them. It wasn't too big, but Akane had to admit the tall one, Kay, was darn cute. Ever since the playdate incident, she has been having a problem dealing with Bakugo and his attitude. The two have gotten into a few arguments, with her just throwing up her hands and walking away. After seeing how it was possible to agree with someone on how heroics should be approached, even if you disagreed, it could be a conversation. Not everything was a competition. When she beat Izuku at a video game, all he did was laugh and not demand a rematch till he won. It reminded her that she needed to text him after school and see how he was doing. He had sent her a message about having to move and wanted to talk to her, but she had been busy with some other stuff and hadn't had a chance to speak with him. Now listen here, I know we are a month away from summer break, but we have a new transfer student joining us, so please be kind and show him around, their homeroom teacher, Ms. Tanaka, said. You may enter now, Mr. Kayama. Akane froze, her heart dropped, and she could hear Kami giggling. The door opened, and he stepped. He glanced at her but kept it quick. Please introduce yourself. Hello, my name is Izuku Kayama, I will be in your care, he said. Akane wondered if she was dreaming. She looked down, nope, she was wearing clothes, she saw the other girls in the class looking him over. Dahlia was smacking Kami on the shoulder and whispering something. Very good, Mr. Kayama, take the empty seat next to Ms. Midoriya so we can begin, she said. He took his seat as the class looked at him. Once they turned away, Akane turned to him. Why didn't you say something? She whispered. I tried, I messaged you like 3 times, sent an email, my mom told your mom, he said back. I thought you were mad, so I didn't want to bother you. We don't have to hang out or anything. His tone sounded hurt and that made Akane feel like shit. No, it's fine, I was just caught off guard, she said. Her typical day suddenly wasn't very normal anymore. Mina. Her head was on the desk as she let out a long sigh, his desk was empty. Namuri had decided to move before summer break to get used to the new location and take care of her orientation and training for the UA. She had told him it would be good for them and that it wouldn't be that bad, but in truth, she was heartbroken, her boyfriend, her alien, was gone. What if he met another cute beautiful alien-loving girl who studied harder or didn't forget to do her chores and that hussy stole him away from her? She needed to go and make sure he was safe. She suddenly bolted out of her seat. Is something wrong, Ashido? Her chemistry teacher said. All the class was looking at her. No, sorry, she bowed quickly and sat back down to some Snickers. Izuku. When the bell rang, people came over to talk to him. Akane left the room, followed by 2 other girls. Hello, Kayama, a nice-looking girl with black hair and glasses said first. I am Yoko Mori, the class president. This is my vice president, Haruko Aoki. Welcome to our class. Thank you. It is very nice to meet you, he responded, returning her bow from his seat. It must be difficult to transfer schools, especially at the end of the year, Yoko said. If you need anything, we will be more than happy to help. That is very kind of you, Izuku said. You are very welcome, Yoko said. If you like, you can sit with us for lunch in the cafeteria so you don't have to sit alone. Again, thank you. I will consider that, Izuku said. Yoko walked away and Haruko leaned over, just be careful of the Azukai, they are the school thugs who like to pick on new students. None are in this class, but they are easy to pick out. Thank you Haruko, I will watch, he said. After that, a few of the guys that came over and introduced themselves, Ren, Yauda and Benjiro, came over to introduce themselves. Ren, the representative of the soccer team, Yauda the swim team, and Benjiro, by far the largest, most sturdy looking of the group, the wrestling team. It made Izuku smile as they introduced themselves quickly and told him he could watch practice anytime. Akane returned right before the bell, so they didn't have a chance to talk. On lunch, he politely declined Yoko and Haruko's invite to lunch and pulled out his bento box, saying he would sit at his desk today, but promised to join them tomorrow. Akane was also pulling out a bento, and her friends came to the site with her. Izuku, not wanting to intrude, just pulled out his phone. Hey, new guy, he turned to see the tawny-haired girl smirking at him. Akane was blushing. Why don't you join us? I mean, after all, you already know Akane. It is okay, Izuku said. I don't want to be an inconvenience. No, it's fine, Akane said. Sit with us, Izuku. I wasn't expecting to see you walk into class and it is my fault for not getting back to you when you tried to tell me. This is Kamen and Delia, they are friends of mine. And they also saw us eating lunch at the mall. Only if you are sure, Izuku said, taking a seat. It is nice to meet you both, he said as he sat down. The door opened. Yo, who is this loser? A loud voice said. Izuku looked over his shoulder to the door and saw who he assumed was Katsuki Bakugo. According to Akane's description, 2 other boys were with him and a nervous-looking girl was there. At least she and the boy with the wings were smiling, the other hat was so low he couldn't tell. Izuku Kayama, Izuku said, turning to the group, I just transferred here this morning and they were nice enough to invite me to sit with them for lunch. I hope that won't be a problem. Bakugo, Katsuki said, eyeing the new competition. He also noticed that Akane seemed flushed, but he dismissed it. Tsubasa, wings, Hifu, hat, and Nini. Let me clarify. I am the top in the class and the next #1 hero. What kind of quirk you got? Really? Akane said. It is his first day, how about you relax, eat lunch, and quit being aggressive. Or you can go eat somewhere else. Izuku watched Katsuki glare at him like he was trying to look through him or establish dominance, and he had to do his best not to smile. Katsuki clicked his tongue and took a seat. Izuku looked at Akane, raising his eyebrow, and she just rolled her eyes. So Izuku, why did you have to move so close to the end of the year, Kami said. My mom started a new job, so we had to move, she can be a bit protective, so she didn't want to leave me home until the school year ended, Izuku replied. Oh yeah, what does she do? Kami pressed. Analytics, Izuku responded, sticking to the cover story. Data crunching. Cool. Kami smirked. So what is your quirk? Katsuki said again. It is a physical enhancement, my body absorbs solar radiation and makes me stronger, tougher, and have great senses, Izuku said. Akane eyebrow raised at the solar radiation part. You going try for UA like the rest of us? Delia said. Definitely, he said, smiling. Always been my dream. He saw some of the group smile and Katsuki rolled his eyes. Don't get in my way, he said, returning to eating his curry. Before lunch ended, he went to wash out his bento box and Akane went with him, so that was Bakugo. He said. Yeah, Akane sighed. You see what I mean, it is so exhausting. Why did you move? My mom took a teaching job at UA, he whispered. Shut the front door, Akane said, her eyes wide. Izuku smiled, we live on campus. Okay, so what do I have to do to get an invite, Akane said, looking at him pleadingly. To be on the campus of UA is a dream. I don't know, he said sheepishly. I don't know the visitor policy, but I will find out for you. Ismavel vs. The boy of tomorrow. After school, he said goodbye to Akane and her friends before he made his way off campus. He did meet a few more members of different groups and activities on his way out, inviting him to attend a meeting or whatnot. He made his way to the side entrance of the UA and presented his ID for the checkpoint before making his way to their home. It was a 2-story nestled with the homes of the other faculty members who lived on campus, including his uncles, that made him happy. Unpacking was easy for him and the rest of the house, as he could do it at super speed. His mother's room was still a work in progress, as she insisted, and he was thankful that she would hang up all her clothes. All he had to do was move the furniture and boxes. He got changed and went to testing ground Omega as he had been told. When he walked in, he saw Nezu, All Might, his mother, and uncles all standing there. His eyes widened when he saw All Might. All Might. He called out as he blurred to appear next to the hero. Are you okay? I haven't seen you since. First, my dear Izuku, I want to thank you for your assistance that day, but I do not know if I would be standing here today if it wasn't for you getting me to the hospital so quickly. I thank you, All Might said as he bowed to Izuku. You don't have to bow to me, Izuku said quickly, waving his hands. I was just doing the best I could. Your best was astounding, All Might said. It raised several questions that I needed to address with your grandfather. He filled me in on your truth with your mother's permission. Izuku's eyes went wide, he looked past All Might to his calm and smiling family, which put him at ease. While the news was difficult to accept, it was a matter I couldn't let lie, and I understand why they kept this secret. I promise you I will do the same. Thank you, All Might, Izuku said. I would like to ask you a favor, All Might smiled as Izuku said anything. Something strange has befallen someone very dear to me, and as I am still recovering, I was wondering if you would be willing to spare time with them, so they may test the extent of their powers. Sure, he said, slightly confused. A door opened, and in walked his grandmother with a very pretty blonde girl with aqua eyes. Melissa Shield, this is Izuku Kayama, All Might said. He is going to spar with you today. Are you sure about this, Uncle Might? She said. Izuku raised an eyebrow quizzically. You must be David Shield's daughter, Izuku said, putting the pieces together. I am, Melissa said, smiling. I am very sure, All Might laughed. Those tests that you didn't score the best on, this young man is the one that beat you. Well then, Melissa said, smiling. We should move to the monitor room, Nezu said, leading the adults away. Don't take this personally, she said, taking a few steps back. I won't, Izuku smiled. I hope All Might doesn't hold it against me when I win. Shazam! Melissa called out, lightning appeared from nowhere, striking her, she had changed. Okay, I don't know what that was, but it was fucking awesome. Izuku said, looking at her. Magic, she said with a wink. Suddenly, to the rest of the observers sans All Might, she blurred and went to hit Izuku with a straight right. Melissa hit nothing but air. She was shocked as he slipped past her punch, spun, and kicked her in the back, sending her flying through a building. He noticed her punch was sloppy. Oh shit. He cried out. He went to move to check on her, but he was caught off guard when she came flying out of the hole in the building. He slid underneath her attack and whirled around, seeing her float above him. You dodged. Twice. She said. She came diving at him again. He jumped over her, grabbed her by the cape, and slammed her over his head into the ground. She tried to kick him in the head, and he could block, but it did send him sliding back. She is incredibly strong, fast, invulnerable, and can fly. I would think she would be like me if there hadn't been a lightning transformation. I am sure Brainiac would have told me about that. He thought. But she is clumsy and untrained, All Might could not have trained her. Unless she somehow received her powers. Melissa charged him again, he could see the attack coming. Instead of dodging, he caught her fist, and the wind from their collision rushed through the training area. What the hell? Melissa said. You're strong but untrained, Izuku said. He released her hand as she tried a left cross, he leaned back, letting it pass, and pushed her elbow to knock her off balance. A knee to the gut lifted her off the ground, and a punch to the back of the head sent her moving back down. He grabbed the collar of her costume and threw her away from him through another building. Melissa came back at him like a missile. Izuku dodged when she turned to come back, and he flew up and speared her in the gut before delivering a double axe handle, sending her back into the ground below. He landed close to her as she re-engaged. He felt terrible when he blocked her punches and countered with right and left to the jaw, an uppercut that lifted her off the ground, and a spin kick that sent her rocketing away. Melissa stumbled to her feet. Fuck, that hurt, she thought. We are equally strong, he is better trained, faster, and can fly. She went back and again she beat her away. This happened multiple times till she stumbled to her feet, her mouth bleeding, a black eye, her costume damaged, she had bruises all over her body, he had a bruise on his cheek. You're new to your powers, he said, walking towards her. How do you know that? She said, raising her fists. We are pretty evenly matched, but I have more combat training. I have been training with my uncles and mother ever since I was little, Izuku replied. Your attacks are clumsy, they would devastate nearly anyone else, but I can see and react to them. Melissa seemed annoyed, but he was right, one more time. Izuku nodded, raising her fists. Melissa was staring up at the ceiling of the training center, and as her consciousness came back to her, Izuku extended a hand to help her out of the crater. Her entire body seemed to protest, even the act of breathing. Thanks, she said. You're right, I just got these abilities not too long ago. How? He said as he slipped her arm around his shoulder, helping her walk to the exit. Melissa took a deep breath and explained what had happened and the strange circumstances that had led her here. She told Izuku about how she had always wanted to be a hero, but being quirkless, she had decided to try and focus on support, but the desire and the itch never left. It was scary and a dream come true when she got these unique abilities. Izuku nodded. My abilities came in late, he said. My body absorbed solar radiation and had to build up enough before I could do anything. I felt battered broken. All I wanted to do was be a hero with my mom and uncles. I bet you felt the same every time you saw All Might. You're not calling me a liar or saying I am crazy for telling some wizard teleported me to cave and I get my powers from saying a strange word, Melissa said, shocked. Why would you lie, Izuku said. If you were going into support, you are pretty smart, I am guessing. I would have gone with some lab accident and it would be a better cover story. Melissa laughed. I guess you're right, but you are correct. Every time I saw All Might, I would wish and dream it was me. Now that I have my chance, would you be willing to help me train? I want to get better, I want to make him proud. They both looked up and saw All Might standing there, behind him was his family. I know what that is like, he said. Of course. How is All Might? Really? Recovering, she lied. I am sure he will ride as Rain soon. If you just got your powers, how did you get a license to fly? Izuku said as they neared the adults. What now? Melissa said. Goodnight kisses. Izuku had just stepped out of the training area with his family when he received a call from Mina. "This doesn't work for me," Mina said. "I am miserable." "I am, too," Izuku said, stepping away to talk. "I miss you so much." "I demand you sneak over to my house tonight so I can see you," Mina said. "Mina, I don't have my flying license yet," Izuku tried to protest. "Izuku, if you don't come over and kiss me, I might just die," Mina said dramatically. "I can feel it coming." Mina faked a sniffle, "Unless you don't miss me." "You know I do," he said. "I know you do." "I am sorry," Mina said with a heavy sigh. "Please." Izuku looked around. 10 o'clock, keep your window open, he whispered. "I miss you so much and need to see you also." "I love you," she whispered. "I love you more," he replied, ending the conversation. Namuri sighed, hearing him sneaking out, but she knew where he was going, so she let him have this one. Young love was adorable. She looked over the framed photo of her and Adam on the desk, she reached out and stroked the glass longingly. "I miss you, my love," she whispered to the night air. Izuku slowed and landed silently in Mina's room. She was in his arms faster than a speeding bullet and their lips met just as fast. Mina had jumped and wrapped her legs around him, her arms around her neck as they greedily kissed. His hands slipping under her ample backside added to their passionate embrace. They had been apart for 3 days, and to them, it was months. Mina moaned at the gentle squeeze of her ass, they broke apart and he began to kiss her neck as they tumbled back onto the bed. When he pulled away, it was her turn to do the same before they were back to kissing, hands grabbing at each other's hair. He pulled her shirt collar to the side and nibbled and sucked at her collarbone, leaving a hickey. He let Mina roll on top of him while she ran her hands over his toned abs and nibbled on his neck. He pulled her up so they could kiss again, desire and want to build between them. The fire they would dance around, but they were afraid to get too close. She finally pulled away breathlessly, her hands on his chest, their hips straddled together, she could feel his desire, she knew he could feel hers. She took his hands and ran them up her shirt towards her breasts, his eyes wide, letting her guide him. "Mina, do you want some ice cream?" They heard her mother yell, he listened to her footsteps hit the bottom step. They scrambled apart, kissed more than they should have, and he was gone in a gust of wind. Mina tried to compose herself, opening the door. "Yeah. Ice cream. Cool." Her mother raised an eyebrow at her out-of-breath daughter, "Dance practice." "Yeah, that is it," Mina said. "Conflict?" Izuku was doing his best to get adjusted to his new class, keeping his promise to sit and eat with the class president. Of course, they were curious about his sudden move and inevitably questions about his quirk with ease, but he relayed the explanation when they asked about the name. He felt a bit self-conscious as he told them Vitruvian. He blushed when the vice president said it fit, then went red as a rose and excused herself. The problem was with Akane's group, particularly Bakugo. He seemed to get more annoyed every time he saw Izuku talking with Akane, and even more so when Akane invited him to join them to work after school. He agreed and went with them, even though the voice in his head screamed that it was a bad idea. As they hit the gym, Kitsuki racked his weight with a smirk. He did his set, it was an impressive amount of weight for someone without a strength-enhancing quirk. When he invited Izuku to do the same weight, Izuku tried to back out, but the others wanted to see him try as he was easily as muscled as Kitsuki. "My quirk is always on," Izuku said. "It is a total physical enhancement." "Whatever, just shut up and lift it," Kitsuki growled. Izuku sighed, walked over, lifted one hand, and put it above his head. That was the beginning of the end. After that, it was a test of endurance, speeding everything that Izuku won easily, and he didn't even sweat. When he broke away from Kitsuki and his obsession with competing, he was helping Akane and the others out, offering advice from all he had learned. His easygoing nature, charm, and warmth endeared him quickly to the group. He was in the middle of spotting Akane when he felt the death stare. "I don't think I should have come," Izuku said. "Yeah, I didn't even think this wouldn't do anything for you," Akane replied. "You can bail if you want." "I think I will," he said. "Come over Saturday, I can even give you a dime store tour." "No kidding." Akane said excitedly and a bit too loudly. "I will text you," Izuku said quickly. "I will head home, thank you for inviting me." He told the group before heading to the locker room to get changed. "Quit staring and get back to your workouts, damn it." Kitsuki growled, staring at the retreating form of Izuku. "Hey, Kitsuki, would you spot me?" Kami asked. "Have wings do it," he said, stomping to Akane. "What is going on with you two?" Kitsuki said the group had not returned to working out. Instead, they were watching the two. "Nothing," Akane said, sitting up and wiping the sweat from her brow. "We are just going to hang out this weekend." "Why the hell for?" Kitsuki demanded. "Because he asked me to." Akane said quizzically, "He is a nice guy, new to the area. What is wrong with me hanging out with him? Or is it because he did better than you on the stupid workout? He has a strength quirk, relax." "Shut up." Kitsuki snapped. No, you shut up, Akane said, getting to her feet. You know what, Kitsuki? I am done dealing with you. Not everything has to be a damn competition, not everything has to be done your damn way. I am tired of having to deal with your shit. Damn it, Akane. Kitsuki roared, getting the attention of more people. If you would just listen to me. No, Kitsuki, I don't have to listen to you, none of us do. Akane fired back. She was so angry that some wisps of fire came off the corners of her mouth. I am sick of you arguing every little thing, making everything a stupid competition, I am done with you. She looked around at everyone staring at them. I hate you, just stay away from me, she whispered before she ran off. Izuku had just come out of the locker room after getting changed and Akane burst out of the girls' locker room, her gym bag over her shoulder, and she was crying. Akane, are you okay? He said worriedly. Just fine, she spat, wiping the tears. I just got to get out of here. Let's get out of here. She grabbed his hand as he allowed her to pull him to the door and out of the gym. She pulled him down the street before she stumbled into an alley, she was fuming. He saw her pacing back and forth. Tears that started to run down her face evaporated as the heat from her began to build. He could hear a torrent of words flowing from her, they were rich with anger, a deep anger that was permeating through her every word, it was centered on Katsuki Bakugo, her frustrations, needs, and desire for change. As she paced the temperature increased, Izuku could tell that things were about boil over. He looked around quickly, then sent a blast of super cold breath that snapped her out of her anger and instantly made her shiver. She turned to him, stunned, all he could do was smile. Sorry, it looked like you were about to blow your top, so it seemed like the safest way to get things under control. He rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. Are you okay? Akane whined for a moment, but then she felt incredibly embarrassed as she was about to lose control because she was so angry and emotional. It was a fact that she tried to keep hidden from just about everyone. She blamed her mom, a big crier, and her hot-tempered father. Not in a violent way, but very passionate, prone to flying off the handle before realizing that he was off base. He would correct it, but it was always a problem. It was a unique relationship when he was home, and her parents couldn't keep their hands off each other. In truth, she thought it was adorable. At one point, Akane was attracted to Katsuki. His fiery personality was the catalyst, childhood friends wanting to be heroes. She had been quite tomboyish when she was little, and she had scars on her knees and elbows to prove it. But while she still preferred jeans over skirts, she appreciated a lovely dress and feeling beautiful. When she was trying to catch his attention, she went to meet him at the movies. She wore a dress and makeup and even spent hours styling her curly hair, only to get "Why are you wearing a dress?" After that, everything went downhill. He complained about wasting time at the movie, they could have been training. The cafe sucked, they should have just gotten the chicken bowl by the gym. She had studied hard for a test and beat him, and he exploded. Her team beat him in a relay race during sports day, and he exploded. She came close to anything better than him, and he exploded. At first, her desire to best him was a different way to catch his attention, but then she found she enjoyed the feeling of winning or seeing her hard work pay off. Everything was a fight, a battle, which she didn't want. Her father was hot-tempered, but he didn't fight with her mother over every little thing, he would most of the time acquiesce to her request. She often wondered why she still put up with all his bullshit, it had been driven home during her play date with Izuku. They had talked about so much and had agreed on several things, but when they didn't agree, she expected a blow and got questions about why she felt that way, him attempting to understand her feelings on matters. His girlfriend was a lucky SOB, she sat there looking at him in that alley, and all she saw was compassion and caring. If he were single, she would have fallen for him right then, but she was comforted by the fact that he was taken, he was exactly what she needed now. A friend. I am now, she said, a bit embarrassed. Thank you, Izuku, you are a good friend. His warm smile put her at ease. Anytime, Akane, he said. I don't want to overstep, but maybe you shouldn't work out with him anymore, it may be good physically, but it doesn't seem good mentally. Well, will you work out with me? She said hesitantly. Of course, we can figure something out, he smirked, there is a hero gym around here, I can see about getting us some passes so we can work out there. Her eyes lit up, shining like stars. Hero gym? She whispered. His laughter made her pout and punch his shoulder. She noticed he rocked with her punch. Instead of letting her make contact, she would have to file that away for later. Thankfully, the end of school was so close that Akane ignored Bakugo. When he came around, she would walk away and Izuku just stood away from him. It made things awkward with the rest of her friends, but Dahlia and Kami were still friendly. Akane stopped working out with them. Instead, she was happy to work out with Izuku at the hero gym. She was sad that she couldn't ask for autographs, but just being in there was enough for her. Then she got to see what Izuku's exercises were, how absurdly strong and fast he was. She was over the moon with her dime store tour of the UA, just being on the campus had her bouncing off the wall. She was surprised when she met his mother and sat with them at dinner. Of course, Mina was a bit sulky about the whole thing with him and Akane, it could be best described as jealousy. She had never had to share Izuku like this. Yes, other girls would be around him, but she was right there, and after they started dating, she was even more right there. But not being with him to work out, study, or go to school made the pink girl a little green. She was a bit snippy with him one night, but when he appeared at her window, she realized it wasn't that she didn't trust him or thought he would leave her, she was jealous of the time that Akane got to spend with him that she just wasn't able to. When summer comes, they will be able to remedy that. Summer Mina's birthday. Despite Mina and Izuku's best efforts, they couldn't stay at each other's house all summer, but they could alternate some week-long stays, and with him getting his flying license, he was there in the morning till night when it was permissible. Of course, she demanded that he take her to the beach, and it had nothing to do with the brand new two-piece swimsuit she had bought, forgoing the usual one-piece she usually wore. How he looked at her and how bad he blushed, but the fact that he couldn't take his eyes off her made it perfect. Mina had never felt more beautiful. A group of stunning older girls had passed, and he hadn't even noticed them. Mina came to be with him for his birthday and met Akane in person, the two girls getting to know each other. Akane pulled her aside and promised her she had no designs on her boyfriend and that he was exactly what she needed because he was a friend. The two talked for a long time, getting to know each other before exchanging numbers, and their friendship blossomed. Mina snuck into his bedroom that night. He began to protest, but it died in his mouth when she removed her shirt. She wasn't wearing a bra, they didn't go further than that, but it was a fantastic experience for both of them. Mina and Izuku were in love. When her birthday came around by the end of that day, Mina knew she would marry him one day. He had arrived early at her home, carrying a big box that she couldn't peek at. They spent the day going to her favorite shops and eating lunch at her favorite cafe. They had dinner with her parents, but she kept stealing glances at that huge crate. She pouted that even after the presents were exchanged, he still wouldn't let her open it. He instead had her open another box of white material, and she curiously pulled it out. As soon as her hands touched it, she recognized it, it was the same material as his blanket, a full bodysuit with a hood and everything. She noticed that it was a bit thicker than his blanket. The next present was blue gloves and boots. She looked at them and then at him, confused. "Go put them on," he said. "Meet me out back." Mina slowly went upstairs and did as she was asked. Her parents looked at him. "Are you positive that she will be safe?" Max asked him. "Mr. Ishido, I love your daughter so much," Izuku said. "I would never do anything to put her at risk or endanger her. We built the same one for my mom to test, and it worked perfectly. What are your intentions for her?" he said, leaning forward. "I hope that we get to go to the UA together and graduate, and if, after all that, she will have me, with your blessing, I would love to marry her," Izuku said, very nervous. "No one could ever make me feel the way Mina does or love me as much as she does. You continue to treat her as you do, and if she wants that, then you have my blessing to ask her to marry you," Max said. "Now give my little girl the most amazing birthday gift of her life, son." "Thank you," Izuku bowed, grabbing another box that went to the backyard. Mina stood in front of the mirror, she had to admit it looked cute, it was form-fitting, and there was a strange metal ring around her neck. She walked back, and he was standing there, some peculiar backpack on the ground next to him. "Okay, Aizu, what is this all?" She stopped when she noticed the backpack had a tube running to a helmet. She looked up at the night sky and then at him. "Are we?" Izuku nodded, giving her a light kiss as he helped her with the pack. Then, he secured the helmet and locked it in place. He pulled around her back and typed a few things in. She jumped when the helmet lit up with information on her location, oxygen levels, etc. He put in an earpiece as he stood before her. He had never seen her so still or so quiet. When he asked if she could hear him, she could only nod. Like hundreds of times before, she stepped forward, putting her feet on his, and they rose. She felt so warm in the suit that they passed through the clouds, climbing higher and higher. Her heart was racing, she was excited and scared, but she knew she was safe when she looked into his eyes. When she looked back, she instinctively tightened her grip. Mina Ishido was in outer space. He turned her around so her back was to him. He wrapped his arms around her, and they just floated there. "What is it like?" she said. "What?" he responded. "Being able to do all these extraordinary things." She looked back at him. "You are in outer space without a helmet, you flew me to outer space. Izuku, am I enough for you? I can't do anything like this, I will never." "No one will, Mina," he said quietly. "I am the last of my people, and I am blessed that my birth parents sent me here, that my mom found me, and that the girl I fell in love with just so happened to love aliens. That girl who was there for me when my heightened senses kicked in, who was there when all these changes happened to me. When I freaked out, your voice called me home." Mina stared at him with tears in her eyes. "I love you, Mina Ishido, all I need from you is you. Your love, your laugh, your smile. Even if I was just a normal boy, if I had your love, I know I would be able to fly. They floated for a while longer. Take me home, Izuku, she said finally. When they got home, they spent the night asleep in each other's arms and then he left the next day to return home. Kara and Max watched as Mina seemed floating. She had this blissful daze as she flittered about the house. Max excused himself to go to the store while Kara wrangled her daughter. Mina, smiling and giggling at some little text he had sent, looked up at her mom. Yes, Mom, he is the one. Kara smiled, the one. Mina blushed, Mom, I couldn't find someone better if I searched the world. How far have you two gone? Kara said, her daughter turned a lovely shade of lilac. Nothing too far, just Mina played with her hands and looked away. Second base. Should we consider a visit to the doctor? Kara pressed, and Mina nodded. Okay, I will set one up. Hayama household. Now, to maximize pleasure for your partner, it is important to focus on these erogenous zones, Nomuri said. Mom is this? Izuku protested, his face red. Listen to Izuku Kayama, I will not have my son be a subpar lover, Nomuri said. But if that is what you want. No, Izuku said, opening his notebook. I am ready to learn. New school year. Lex was sad to leave Mina, happy that Izuku was gone, but he knew he had to put things into perspective. Despite his attraction for Mina and his dislike of Izuku, he couldn't find a reason to dislike him aside from just having things he didn't. It was an unnatural position for Lex as he normally had everything he ever wanted up until he met them. But he could see that Mina was in love with that idiot and that he had something that Lex didn't, probably dumb muscles or something superficial. That was at least what he told himself. He had been busy, so he couldn't give Mina as much time as he wanted. He had quieted the board with a few tidbits his father had agreed to release for his lab. He was getting prepared for his move to Island, taking his entrance exam. He was pleased that Mina took him and Daphne to a little cafe for a goodbye dinner, gave them both phone charms of her favorite aliens, and made them promise to text her and stay in touch. The part that confused him was Mina and Daphne talking for over 20 minutes while he was forced to sit in the car. He noticed that they would occasionally look towards him, but when he went to step out of the vehicle, Mina chased him back inside. It was easy to get situated on the island and they already had a home there. When the first day of school came, he strolled to class confident and ready to begin this year. According to the information he had received, the class seating was by rank. When they entered, he immediately looked to the number 1 spot only to see a blonde-haired girl sitting there, her laptop open and typing away. Lex was about to say something, but there was no way that someone in this class was that dumb. He looked at the seating chart and ground his teeth. 1. Melissa Shield. 2. Alexander Luthor. Daphne took the 12th seat as he reluctantly walked over and sat in his seat. The girl looked over and smiled, extending her hand. Melissa Shield, pleased to meet you, she said. Alexander Luthor, he responded with a plastic smile. Intelligence quirk. Nobody enhancement, Melissa said. It took a while to activate, apparently, my body had to stockpile the energy or something. Well, it is nice to meet you, he lied. Internally, he seethed, no intelligence quirk, yet she ranked higher, that would not last. All might. Ashi had taken it upon himself to investigate young Kayama. He was interested in what type of person he was away from everyone. A good way to find out what he had experienced was to find out about a person's partner, what kind of person they were, and how they behaved. He was observing Mina, who was out with friends, when there was a bit of commotion as people ran from a side street. He watched as Mina ran over him, following a discreet distance away. There was a large man well over 12 feet tall with a warthog mutation. The man was large and intimidating, near a flower shop, and the attendant was cowering. The man was towering over a young man who was frozen stiff. The man was gesturing wildly, his voice loud, as he pointed at the boy and then to the shop attendant. Tashi watched as Mina ran up. It took her a few moments. The man pulled out a paper and pointed at her, clearly agitated. Mina took the paper and patiently had the man repeat himself a few times. Then she gave him directions, and the man bowed. She apologized to the shop attendant and the boy before walking out with Mina. I know it gets frustrating, people look at us differently because of our mutations, she said, pointing down the street. And with the huge tusks, it is hard to communicate. The man nodded. Just take your time. It will be all right. Go to the end of the block, turn left, then right at the second block. The man bowed and thanked the girl. I will be a famous hero one day, don't you worry, so mutants all over will have someone to be a symbol for them. Once the man was gone, her friends approached her, asking if she was scared. Of course, Mina said, her hand over her heat. At first, but then I realized he was just frustrated. He had a hard time talking and needed to find an address, but he got lost. Mina smiled and walked away with her friends. She was calm, even scared, so she stepped up, just like when All for One came at her. A symbol for mutants, something to give them hope. I think I should get to know you better, Mina Shido, he said. Brave, good heart and willingness to step up are all qualities that a successor should have. Her personality was spot on, and her smile and nature made her popular. And if young Kayama did go out of control, she may be the only one to pull him back. He imagined the thought of Mina as his successor, Melissa, and Izuku with her, three pillars ready to protect the world. What had begun as an investigation into young Kayama had brought him back again and again to Mina Shido. The more he thought about it, the more it felt right. He needed to sit down, talk with her, and hear from the girl directly. That's it for today guys, hope you enjoyed this. If you did then please make sure to leave a like, share and do check it out author of this fanfic. Take care. Thanks for watching.